Chapter 118. I can only rely on your highness for this. Thank you, your highness. Jian Peihuan said softly when she heard Xiao Nanyes's words. Knock, knock. At this moment, there was a sudden knock on the door. Come in. Jiang Peihuan thought the visitor was Yu Er, so she responded. However, when the door opened, the person who entered was Jiang Changbai. Huan Er 1. King Qing, why are you here? Upon opening the door, Jiang Changbai saw Xiao Nani standing in the room. His instinct was to ask, but remembering his recent absence, he came to understand. Xiao Nanyes's daily care for the plum garden was not something Jiang Changbai hadn't heard from Deputy General Liu. Knowing that Xiao Nani left every night, he pretended not to know, turning a blind eye. So, seeing Xiao Nani now, he wasn't as upset as the first time they met. Upon seeing Jiang Changbai, Xiao Nani nodded without saying a word. However, Jiang Peihuan immediately went up to him and softly asked, Elder brother, do you need something from me? Hearing Jiang Peihuan's voice, Jiang Changbai pulled himself out of his thoughts. Xiao Nani, hearing this, said quietly, Huan Er, I should leave now. With that, Xiao Nani prepared to leave, but behind him came the voice of Jiang Changbai. Your Highness, please wait. Hearing the voice, Xiao Nani instinctively stopped, turned around, and looked at Jiang Changbai. Facing the man's puzzled gaze, Jiang Changbai spoke softly. I have a favor to ask of your highness. After a while, the three of them sat down on the chairs in the living room. Zhongyi had already been handed over to Dong Shui. Your highness, one heard you once dealt with King Chujiang before? After sitting down, Jiang Changbai looked at Xiao Nani and asked. Upon hearing this, Xiao Nanyes's eyes showed a hint of surprise, but he still nodded. Correct, I had contact with King Chujiang 3 years ago. And based on your judgment, your highness, what is King Chujiang's character like? Autocratic, domineering, and reckless. Xiao Nani spoke softly after a moment of silence. Elder brother, is there something wrong with King Chujiang? Jiang Peihuan, who had been sitting quietly, turned to Jiang Changbai and asked softly. It's not confirmed yet, but there are rumors that King Chujiang is recruiting and buying horses in Jiangzhou, although this has not been confirmed yet. The news is true. As soon as Jiang Changbai finished speaking, Jiang Peihuan immediately interjected. At this, both Jiang Changbai and Xiao Nani turned to look at her. Facing their gazes, Jiang Peihuan paused before continuing. Jiangzhou is far from the capital. It's a place where the mountains are high and the emperor is far away. If there wasn't such a thing happening, the news wouldn't have reached the capital. So I guess it's true. The matter of King Chujiang recruiting and buying horses had happened in her previous life too. King Chujiang, like the others, was a king of a different surname. But he was unlike Huainan King who had no real power. King Chujiang was a vassal king with actual military power, and Jiangzhou was rich and strong. In her previous life, when King Chujiang recruited and bought horses, he had rebellious intentions. By the time Emperor Qi Ming knew about this, King Chujiang's soldiers had already grown in number. Emperor Qi Ming immediately sent Jiang Hong to Jiangzhou. But at that time, Jiang Hong, full of depression due to the death of Jiang Changbai, was seriously injured by King Chujiang. Because of this, Jiang Peihuan was ridiculed by Xiao Juanhao in her previous life, and the Jiang family was scolded by Emperor Qi Ming. Upon hearing Jiang Peihuan's words, both Xiao Nani and Jiang Changbai showed surprise, but neither of them said anything. Instead, Xiao Nani turned to Jiang Changbai and asked directly, Does the young general wish for me to investigate this? The man spoke in affirmative, and Jiang Changbai nodded after hearing it. Looking at Xiao Nani, Jiang Changbai said directly, Originally, one planned to go to Jiangzhou myself, but my father just handed over the military token. If I go to Jiangzhou now, and the emperor finds out, it will certainly cause trouble. So, after thinking about it, I can rely on your highness for this matter. Everyone in the capital knew about Emperor Qi Ming's fondness for Xiao Nani. Even if Emperor Qi Ming knew that Xiao Nani went to Jiangzhou, he wouldn't say anything. Okay, I'll leave for Jiangzhou tonight. If there's any news, I'll send someone to report it to the general's mansion immediately. Thank you, your highness. Then I'll leave this matter to you. Originally, Jiang Chongbai wanted Jiang Peihuan to invite Xiao Nani to the general's mansion for a discussion, but he didn't expect to see him at the plum garden. So he directly explained the situation. After settling this matter, Jiang Chongbai left immediately. Only Xiao Nani and Jiang Peihuan remained in the living room. You go first. They spoke simultaneously, and after a moment of silence, Xiao Nani looked at Jiang Peihuan and said. Hearing his words, Jiang Peihuan softly said, "The journey to Jiangzhou may be dangerous, so please take care, Your Highness." In her previous life, there was no event of Xiao Nani going to Jiangzhou for investigation, so Jiang Peihuan didn't know if there would be danger on this trip. But thinking about Jiang Shangbai's serious expression, she could guess that this trip was definitely not simple. "Don't worry, it'll be fine, and it'll return as soon as possible. This trip to Jiangzhou will take a few days at least, maybe even more than 10 days. While I'm not in the capital, you take good care of yourself." Hearing his words, Jiang Peihuan nodded, glancing at the outside sky. Xiao Nani didn't linger and walked straight out. But when he reached the door, the man suddenly stopped. Looking at his retreating figure, a flicker of confusion passed in Jiang Peihuan's eyes. "Your Highness, are you still?" Before she could finish her sentence, a familiar warmth enveloped her. It was Xiao Nani, reaching out and holding her tightly. "I will return as soon as possible," he whispered into her ear, then let go of her. This time, Xiao Nani really left. Watching his figure disappear into the darkness, Jiang Peihuan's eyes softened. The air was filled with a cold fragrance, the scent of Xiao Nani. "Eldest Mississippi." Hearing the voice behind her, Jiang Peihuan turned around. Seeing Yu Air bowing to her, Jiang Peihuan asked softly, "How is Yi Air?" "Eldest Miss, rest assured. Young Master Yin is already sleeping peacefully. Dong Shui and the nanny can take good care of him." Upon hearing these words, Jiang Peihuan let out a sigh of relief. These past few nights taking care of Zhong Yi, she had nearly exhausted herself. That night, Jiang Peihuan had a good sleep. However, early the next morning, Jiang Peihuan woke up early because Lu Xian was returning to her house. After hearing the news, Jiang Peihuan immediately went to Lu Xiu's elegant garden, and Lu Xian had already packed her things. Seeing Jiang Peihuan, she smiled and walked over to pay respects. "Sister Jiang, thank you so much for everything." Chapter 119. The appearance of Xiao Juanhao because of the Sea Hawk incident. Xiao Juanhao had no time to bother about Lu Xian anymore. But considering Xiao Junhao's notorious cruelty, Jiang Peihuan still warned Lu Xian. "Xian heir, Prince Qing is not a man to be messed with. By giving this gift, the Lu family has thoroughly offended him. So when you return, you need to finalize your marriage quickly." This was the only solution. Lu Xian clearly knew this, so she nodded when she heard Jiang Peihuan's words. After thinking, she lowered her voice and spoke to Jiang Peihuan. "Sister Jiang, to be honest, I am going home this time to meet my cousin from my uncle's family." "Are you referring to the Gu family?" Jingdou is neither big nor small, and due to Lu Xiu's influence, Jiang Peihuan had some understanding of Liu's family relatives. But thinking of the Gu family reminded Jiang Peihuan of events from her previous life. In her previous life, Lu Xiu spent all his wealth to save Jiang Peihuan. But as the general's mansion fell, many businessmen set their sights on the Lu family, and the Gu family was one of them. Thinking about this made Jiang Peihuan frown. Seeing Lu Xian nod, she spoke softly. "Even though your marriage is urgent, there's still some time. You should discuss it with uncle and aunt." "Don't worry, Sister Jiang, I understand." Jiang Peihuan wanted to remind her again. But considering that the Gu and Lu families were after all true relatives, she closed her mouth and didn't say anything more. "Third aunt, hasn't the Lu family already started arranging a match for Xian heir? Why are you still so worried?" After sending Lu Xian away, Jiang Peihuan turned her head to see Lu Xiu's eyes filled with worry. Hearing Jiang Peihuan's words, Lu Xiu sighed deeply. The Gu family is not a good match. As the topic opened up, Lu Xiu couldn't help but continue. "The one meeting with Xian heir this time is Gu Jun. First have met him before. He seems honest and sincere, but he is too obedient to his mother, even though she is Xian heir's aunt. Once Xian heir marries over, she becomes the mother-in-law. If there are conflicts between the mother-in-law and daughter-in-law, I'm afraid Gejun won't be able to protect Xian heir. This was the Lu family's business, and it was not appropriate for Jiang Peihuan to comment. So after hearing Lu Xiu's words, all she could do was offer comfort quietly. It's just a meeting. It doesn't necessarily mean they will end up together. Jiang Peihuan thought that Xiao Juanhao, thoroughly abandoned by Emperor Qi Ming, had lost interest in Lu Xian. But she didn't expect that Xiao Juanhao was already waiting for her on the road. Cousin, why have we stopped? The carriage suddenly stopped, and Lu Xian looked outside. As she lifted the curtain, she was stunned. Not until she saw Pei Wu approaching from the opposite side did Lu Xin's eyes fill with panic. But seeing Gejun on horseback, she sighed in relief. What happened next, however, made Lu Xin's expression turn ugly. Who are you and why are you blocking our way? Gejun, who was not particularly good-looking but rather decent, looked at Pei Wu approaching him and asked coldly. But Pei Wu didn't even look at Gejun. Instead he turned to the carriage and said, Miss Lu, my master His Highness wishes to see you. If Miss Lu doesn't come out voluntarily, I'm afraid I'll have to be rude. As he spoke, Pei Wu directly lifted the curtain of Lu Xin's carriage. Seeing his actions, Lu Xian was startled. She instinctively looked at Gejun. But Gejun, hearing the word His Highness, was stunned. Cousin, Lu Xian called out, but Gejun just lowered his head. Seeing this scene, Pei Wu's eyes revealed a hint of mockery. Miss Lu, please. Sitting in the carriage, Lu Xian stared at Gejun, her eyes filled with disappointment. Finally, she stepped out of the carriage with a pale face. When she walked to the opposite carriage, Pei Wu opened the curtain for her. As soon as Lu Xian saw Xiao Juanhao sitting inside, she had no choice but to steel herself and get into the carriage. At this point, Xiao Juanhao directly addressed Gejun. Miss Lu is the woman I fancy. If the Gu family dares to harbor any intentions, it would be an offense to my Prince Qing mansion. Seeing the undisguised murderous intent in Xiao Junhao's eyes, Gejun immediately dismounted from his horse and knelt on the ground. I didn't know that my cousin Xian heir was the one your highness fancied. Now you do. Yes, I know. Your highness, rest assured, I would never harbor inappropriate thoughts towards my cousin Xian heir again. Upon hearing these words, Lu Xian, who was already filled with disappointment, became even more despaired. Let's go. Yes, your highness. As soon as Xiao Juanhao finished speaking, Pei Wu ordered his men to drive the carriage away. Lu Xian was cowering in the corner of the carriage, staring at Xiao Juanhao who sat across from her, her eyes filled with panic. She pondered for a moment before finally gathering the courage to speak. Your highness, you are. Before Lu Xian could finish her words, Xiao Juanhao swiftly grabbed her wrist. With a forceful pull, he pushed her to one side. How dare you? He said, his eyes filled with a threatening darkness. Seeing this, Lu Xian screamed in fear. Do you think if you hide in the Jiang mansion, I can't do anything to you? Xiao Juanhao held her chin tightly, his eyes filled with anger as he spoke. Lu Xian was so frightened she dared not utter a word. Now, one will personally bring you back to my mansion. After saying these words, Xiao Juanhao let go of Lu Xian, causing her to crash against the carriage. The impact made her face turn pale from pain. People always said that Xiao Juanhao was gentle. But at this moment, Lu Xian realized how misleading the rumors were. She shrank to one side, afraid to look at Xiao Juanhao again as the carriage sped away. If she were really taken to the Qing mansion, Lu Xian knew very well what awaited her. If she was really brought to the Qing mansion, Lu Xian knew very well what was waiting for her. She couldn't be taken to the Qing mansion, even if it meant death. Seeing the moving curtain of the carriage, a firm look flashed in Lu Xin's eyes. She lifted the curtain and jumped out of the moving carriage. Pei Wu quickly. Xiao Juanhao was shocked to see Lu Xian, who seemed so weak, dare to jump from the carriage. After a few seconds he shouted to the outside. When Pei Wu saw Lu Xian jumping off, he quickly pulled the reins. So Lu Xian fell to the ground, but wasn't trampled by the horses. Upon hearing Xiao Junhao's voice, Lu Xian ignored the pain in her foot and ran forward. Your Highness, don't worry. I will capture Miss Lu immediately, said Pei Wu. as he rode his horse to chase after her. Hearing the galloping hooves behind her, Lu Xin's eyes were filled with terror. She instinctively ran towards the city's protective river. Today, even if she died, she couldn't be caught by the Prince of Qing. Miss Lu. Suddenly, Lu Xian heard a familiar voice. Looking up, she saw Jiang Changbai coming towards her. Chapter 120. If I dare to marry you, will you agree? Seeing him, Lu Xin's eyes lit up with joy, but thinking of the people chasing her, she ran in a different direction. She could not implicate the Jiang family anymore. However, Jiang Changbai watched Lu Xin's retreating figure, furrowing his brow. All he saw in Lu Xin's eyes was fear. At this time, the sound of hoofbeats reached his ears, and Jiang Changbai saw Pei Wu riding towards them. Seeing him, Jiang Changbai frowned. Noticing him chasing in Lu Xin's direction, Jiang Changbai followed directly. Pei Wu was on horseback. Spotting Lu Xin's figure, he shouted loudly, "Stop!" Hearing this, Lu Xian was startled and fell to the ground. Pei Wu, seeing this scene, revealed a touch of gloominess in his eyes. He reached out, intending to pull Lu Xian onto his horse, but someone stopped him. "What do you think you're doing?" Jiang Changbai extended his hand, directly blocking Pei Wu, his eyes full of coldness. Seeing the sudden appearance of Jiang Changbai, Pei Wu frowned, while Lu Xian showed excitement. Seeing Jiang Changbai dismount, she didn't hesitate and quickly hid behind him. Watching the scene, Pei Wu darkly said, "Young general, this person is wanted by Prince Qing. You. As I understand it, Prince Qing has been demoted to a provincial prince by the emperor. You should change your address." You. As if completely disregarding the anger in Pei Wu's eyes, Jiang Changbai continued, "I have some idea of Prince Qing's plans. But a noble prince scheming against a weak woman isn't quite gentlemanly, is it? Do you intend to oppose my master, the prince? If Guard Pei insists on thinking so, then it is indeed the case." With these words, Jiang Changbai mounted his horse and extended his hand to Lu Xian. Seeing his extended hand, Lu Xian paused, and after a moment of silence, she took Jiang Shangbai's hand. With a little force, he pulled Lu Xian directly onto the horse. Letting Lu Xian sit in front of him, Jiang Changbai said to Pei Wu, "I'm taking her. If Prince Qing wants her, he can come to my mansion." Hearing this, Pei Wu prepared to unsheath his sword, but seeing his movements, Jiang Changbai scoffed, "Guard Pei, although you are a top-notch expert, you're no match for me." Leaving these words behind, Jiang Changbai rode away with Lu Xian. After a distance, Jiang Changbai slowed down. At this moment, Lu Xian looked at him and spoke. "Young Master Jiang, could you please send me back to the Lu mansion? If I send you back to the Lu mansion, Prince Qing's men will take you away immediately. But if one go to the general's mansion, it will bring trouble to the household." "No worries." Hearing Lu Xin's words, Jiang Changbai replied calmly. As they spoke, they arrived at the general's mansion. Jiang Changbai took Lu Xian directly to the elegant garden, where Jiang Peihuan was speaking with Lu Xiao. Hearing the voice, the two went to the main hall. "Elder brother? Xian heir?" Seeing Jiang Changbai and Lu Xian enter together, confusion filled Jiang Peihuan's eyes. "Xian heir, didn't you leave? How come?" Third aunt, Miss Lu ran into people from Prince Qing's mansion on the road. "I think you should let her stay in the garden for some time." "What?" After hearing about the incident from Jiang Changbai, Lu Xiao looked worried. "Xian heir, didn't your cousin come to pick you up?" At this point, Jiang Peihuan suddenly spoke. Lu Xian, whose face was already strained, looked even more distressed upon hearing this. After a brief explanation of the situation, Lu Xian said sorrowfully, "I hope Andy won't publicize this matter. I used to think that Gujun was a good-natured man, but now I know he's just a coward. He doesn't deserve you." Lu Xiao's eyes were filled with anger. Seeing the sadness in Lu Xin's eyes, she comforted in a soft voice. "It's okay, Xian heir. Gujun doesn't deserve you. I will ask elder brother to find you a suitable husband later." "Aunt, I'm afraid it's not possible now." Facing the puzzled expressions, Lu Xian repeated the words of Xiao Juanhao and Gujun, then continued, "I'm afraid that after this, no one will dare to marry me." "Who says so?" At this point, a deep voice suddenly sounded. The person who spoke was Jiang Changbai. Hearing his voice, Jiang Peihuan, Lu Xiao, and Lu Xian all looked at him. Facing their gaze, Jiang Changbai directly said, "People like Gujun are nothing but a bunch of cowards. Miss Lu, if you are willing, you can marry me." Elder brother? Changbai. Before Lu Xian could respond, Jiang Peihuan and Lu Xiao couldn't help but exclaim. At this moment, Jiang Changbai did not look at the two people, but directly at Lu Xian. "Miss Lu, if I dare to marry you, would you be willing to marry me?" "Mr. Jiang, this joke is..." "I'm not joking." Before Lu Xian could finish her sentence, Jiang Changbai cut her off. At this, even Lu Xiao's face changed. She stepped forward and blocked Lu Xian, looked at Jiang Changbai and said softly, "Changbai, this is a serious matter. If you really want to marry Xian heir, how can I explain this to my brother and sister-in-law?" Lu Xian was her niece, and in Lu Xiao's eyes, she was absolutely wonderful. But Lu Xiao was self-aware. If she handed Lu Xian to Jiang Changbai, the whole Jiang family might blame her. Let's not talk about others, even Jiang Run would disagree. However, after hearing these words, Jiang Changbai laughed. "Aunt, I can make my own decisions about my marriage. No need for my parents to explain anything." Seeing that Lu Xiao was about to say something, Jiang Changbai interrupted her first. "Aunt, let's talk about this later. You better calm Miss Lu first. I shall take my leave now." With that, Jiang Changbai left the garden, and Jiang Peihuan quickly followed him. "Elder brother?" Hearing the voice behind him, Jiang Changbai stopped. Looking at Jiang Peihuan who had come to him, he raised an eyebrow. "Huan heir, are you here to persuade me to give up this idea? If I persuade you, will you give up?" "Of course not." Hearing Jiang Peihuan's voice, Jiang Changbai answered subconsciously. Jiang Peihuan smiled. "Then I won't persuade you." But after these words fell, the smile on Jiang Peihuan's face disappeared, replaced by seriousness. She looked at her elder brother and asked softly, "Elder brother, are you serious about Miss Lu?" "Yes." Jiang Changbai was silent for a moment before nodding. His determination was conveyed in that single word. Hearing this, Jiang Peihuan laughed. "Elder brother, then you must be prepared for a fight." Chapter 121. Jiang Changbai gets beaten up. A fight? Upon hearing Jiang Peihuan's words, a look of confusion flashed in Jiang Changbai's eyes. Observing his puzzled expression, Jiang Peihuan sighed in helplessness. "Elder brother, you spend years in the military and don't care about different in family status. But that doesn't mean our father and mother don't care." Jiang Peihuan thought even if Jiang Changbai really wanted to marry Lu Xian, he would wait a few days. However, to her surprise, her door was knocked on that very night by Yu heir. The knocking was rapid, waking Jiang Peihuan instantly. Just as she opened the door, Yu heir, with panic in her eyes, urgently spoke, "Miss, hurry to the chrysanthemum hall. The young master is being beaten to death." "What happened?" "I can't explain it all right now. It seems to be because of Miss Lu." Quickly throwing on a coat, Jiang Peihuan rushed towards the chrysanthemum hall. Just as she reached the courtyard entrance, she heard the sound of a whip striking. Her face paled, and Jiang Peihuan hastened her steps. Entering the yard, she saw Jiang Changbai kneeling in the middle of the yard, his back full of bloody whip marks. The one whipping him was none other than Deputy General Lu. Seeing this scene, Jiang Peihuan frowned. "Elder brother, what on earth is happening?" Jiang Changbai's face was somewhat pale, with a layer of sweat on his forehead. Hearing Jiang Peihuan's voice, he whispered, "I talked back to grandmother. One deserved to be punished." "Why did you talk back to grandmother for no reason?" Jiang Changbai did not respond. Not looking at him anymore, Jiang Peihuan walked straight into the house. At the door, she saw Nanny Su waiting there. Nanny Su was clearly waiting for Jiang Peihuan. Seeing her, she immediately approached. "Eldest miss, please try to persuade the old madam." "Nanny Su, what's going on?" "Sigh." Nanny Su sighed deeply, then recounted the whole incident. From her narration, Jiang Peihuan finally understood the cause. Jiang Changbai had come to greet the old Madam Jiang specially. The old madam then mentioned her niece from her maternal home, saying she was a suitable match for Jiang Changbai. Just recently, Jiang Changbai had expressed his intent to marry Lu Xian. Hearing the old Madame Jiang's words, he flatly refused. Even though the old madam was strict, she was not unreasonable. However, Jiang Changbai announced that he intended to marry Lu Xian. Upon hearing this name, the old madam was furious on the spot. Lu Xiao, when you first got involved with my third son, he refused to marry anyone but you, so I accepted it. But how dare you? How dare you let your niece marry Changbai? Don't you know that Changbai is my grandson, the eldest son of my general's mansion, and the future pillar of the general's mansion? You want to marry him to a merchant's daughter? What are your intentions, you? Mother, this matter has nothing to do with Xiao heir. With each word from the old madam, Lu Xiao's face turned a shade paler. Seeing Lu Xiao's shaky state, Jiang Ren quickly intervened. But his intervention only made matters worse. Seeing that Jiang Ren was still defending Lu Xiao, the old madam choked on her anger. Grandmother? Seeing the old madam's mood change, Jiang Peihuan quickly stepped forward, soothing the old madam Jiang's chest. After the old madam caught her breath, she looked at Yi Xiao. Bring me my heart-strengthening pill. Grandmother, if you have something to say it calmly, don't be angry. Jiang Peihuan gently comforted her, bringing the medicine to the old madam's mouth. Because of Jiang Changbai, Jiang Hong, and Shui Yan were also kneeling on the ground. The entire family of the Jiang house, except those not present, were kneeling before the old madam. Even Aunt Mei was kneeling behind Zhou Rongfang. Feeling wronged, Zhou Rongfang saw Jiang Peihuan standing beside the old madam and spoke irritably. Huan heir, despite your closeness to your third aunt, now you see her true colors. Shut up. Jiang Yuan, who was kneeling beside Jiang Hong, reprimanded her in a low voice. But this time, the old madam sided with Zhou Rongfang. She gave Li Xiao a cold glance and said in a low voice, "What the second branch said is not wrong." Then, the old madam looked at Jiang Peihuan. Her expression softened considerably when she spoke to her. Huan heir, one fear your third aunt is trying to destroy the entire Jiang family. Grandmother, third aunt isn't such a person. You still defend Lu Xiao after knowing what happened. Seeing the anger in the old madam's eyes, Jiang Peihuan quickly knelt at her feet, grabbing her hand. Grandmother, although cousin Xan heir is from the Lu family, she is also a knowledgeable and well-behaved young lady. This matter can't be blamed on third aunt. If you must blame someone, it is elder brother who has improper thoughts for Xan heir. Ever since Lu Xiao arrived at the Chrysanthemum Hall, he had been subject to many cold stares. Even though Jiang Hong and his wife did not say anything, their facial expressions suggested a certain degree of dissatisfaction. However, at this moment, hearing Jiang Peihuan's words, gratitude filled Lu Xiao's eyes. But the old madam, upon hearing these words, was full of discontent. If it wasn't for her deliberate attempt to catch your elder brother's attention, how would Changbai have been moved? Jiang Peihuan wanted to say more, but she knew that the old madam was still angry. The more she defended Lu Xiao, the more annoyed the old madam would become. After some thought, Jiang Peihuan gently tugged at the old madam's sleeve. Grandmother, elder brother is your own grandson. As long as you disagree, he has no say in his own marriage. But if we allow Deputy General Lu to continue, elder brother might really get beaten to death. Let him be beaten to death, better than making your grandmother angry. As soon as Jiang Peihuan finished her words, Shui Yin chimed in. The old madam, who was already concerned about her eldest grandson, immediately turned to Nanny Su upon hearing the words of Shui Yin and Jiang Peihuan. Hurry, tell Deputy General Lu to stop, and call for the doctor. Yes, old madam. Upon hearing the old madam's words, Nanny Su immediately ran off. Grandmother, please don't be angry. If something bad happens to you because of your anger, elder brother will really be beaten to death by father. With Jiang Peihuan's soothing, the old madam calmed down a bit. Then she turned to Lu Xiao. You must send your niece away immediately. I don't want to see her in the general's mansion again, or you will have to leave with her. Mother, you old third, if you want to anger me to death for your wife, then protect her. Before Jiang Ren could finish his words, he was interrupted by the old madam. Having said this, the old madam, with the support of Nanny Su, left the main hall. Father, mother, I'm going to check on either brother. Thinking of Jiang Shangbai's injuries, Jiang Peihuan bowed to Jiang Hong and walked out. Jiang Shangbai's courtyard was in the front yard. As Jiang Peihuan and Yu Er walked in, they heard Chang'an's cry. Elder young master, how did you get beaten like this? Chapter 122. You can't marry her. Although Chang'an was Jiang Shangbai's attendant, he had many other tasks to perform daily, so he was shocked to see Jiang Changbai returning home covered in injuries. Stop shouting. Go get a basin of water. Eldest Mississippi. Upon seeing Jiang Peihuan, Chang'an quickly showed his respect. Jiang Peihuan walked to the bedside where Jiang Changbai was lying face down, his upper body bare. His back was riddled with horrific whip scars, many of which were bleeding. Despite looking pale, Jiang Changbai was still conscious. Seeing Jiang Peihuan standing by the bed, he chuckled weakly. Huan Er, why are you here? If elder brother can still laugh, the injuries must not be too severe. Eldest miss, you must be joking. Young master's wounds won't heal for at least a few weeks. Before Jiang Changbai could respond, Chang'an, who had just brought in a basin of water, couldn't help but chime in. Chang'an placed the basin on a nearby rack and was about to clean Jiang Shangbai's wounds when he was stopped by Jiang Peihuan. Meeting his confused gaze, Jiang Peihuan said softly, I'll do it. Taking the cloth from Chang'an, Jiang Peihuan carefully cleaned Jiang Shangbai's wounds. At first glance, his back was covered in blood, which made it look terrifying. After cleaning the wounds, Jiang Peihuan realized that they were less severe than they appeared, merely skin deep. Otherwise, according to Deputy General Liu's strength, Jiang Changbai would have fainted long ago. Elder brother, you were too impulsive today. I've already decided to marry Liu Xian, so it was bound to come out sooner or later. Now that it's out, at least everyone in the family knows. Elder brother, do you understand the difference between sooner and later? Seeing Jiang Shangbai's puzzled face, there was a hint of helplessness in Jiang Peihuan's eyes. Jiang Changbai, a young celebrity in the battlefield, was clever and brilliant there, but when it came to matters at home, he was a straight shooter. You could have planned better, maybe improved everyone's impression of Xian heir, then proposed the marriage. That way, even if the marriage didn't work out, it wouldn't look so bad. But today, elder brother, you spoke up without thinking, causing grandmother to develop a dislike for Xian heir, and our parents now have opinions about her. As for others, third aunt has always been out of favor with grandmother. She had just managed to improve their relationship a little, but now it's all back to square one. Grandmother now dislikes third aunt even more. One didn't think that far. Hearing Jiang Peihuan's words, Jiang Changbai furrowed his brow. Lowering her head, Jiang Peihuan carefully applied medicine to his wounds. Then she sat on a stool nearby and continued speaking. I know you didn't consider all this, but all these things happened because of you. Xian heir will be sent away tonight. Elder brother, what are you doing? Seeing Jiang Changbai suddenly sit up, Jiang Peihuan quickly held him down. I need to find her. I can't let her go home just like that. Preventing her from going home. What do you intend to do? A stern voice suddenly came from the door. Jiang Peihuan turned around and saw Jiang Shangbai's parents entering the room. Father, mother. Seeing them, Jiang Peihuan quickly paid her respects. Huan Er, it's getting late. Don't stay here any longer. Go back to Palm Garden and rest. Jiang Shangbai's father, Jiang Hong, was quite gentle with his daughter. He softly addressed Jiang Peihuan. As soon as he heard this, Jiang Changbai quickly tugged at Jiang Peihuan's sleeve, pleading for help with his eyes. Seeing this, Jiang Hong glared at him. As a big brother, you can't take care of your sister, and yet you always have her worry about you. Are you not ashamed? Enough, don't say any more. Jiang Shangbai's mother, Shui Yan, was slightly upset seeing her son's injuries. Seeing Jiang Hong about to speak, she gave him a displeased look. After checking on Jiang Shangbai's wounds and finding nothing serious, Shui Yan finally addressed her son. Do you really like Liu Xian that much? Just as Jiang Changbai was about to answer, Shui Yan continued. Regardless of how much you like her, you can't marry her. Mother. Hearing Shui Yan's words, surprise filled Jiang Shangbai's eyes. Not only was Jiang Changbai surprised, but Jiang Peihuan also looked shocked. In Jian Paihuan's heart, although Shui Yin was born into a prestigious family, she was very open-minded. Mother, do you also care about social status differences? After a moment of silence, Jiang Changbai looked at his mother with eyes filled with pain. At his words, Jiang Hong was about to react, but Shui Yin stopped him. Looking at Jiang Changbai who lay on the bed, Shui Yin smiled and said, "In your eyes, is your mother that kind of person? Of course not. Then why?" Jiang Changbai blurted out subconsciously, but his eyes were full of confusion. Meeting his gaze, Shui Yin spoke plainly. "There are 2 reasons why I'm stopping you from marrying Lu Xian, the first being your grandmother. You saw your grandmother's attitude today. If you insist on marrying Lu Xian, she might be angered to death by you. And then there's your third aunt. How will she face your grandmother in the future? Of course, you can choose to disregard all this. But there's one thing you cannot overlook." Seeing Jiang Changbai and Jiang Peihuan both looking at her, Shui Yin continued, "The Lu family is a royal merchant family, rich enough to rival a nation. Your father just surrendered his military authority, which temporarily eased the emperor's vigilance towards us. But if you were to marry Lu Xian, what would the emperor think?" Upon hearing Shui Yan's words, both Jiang Changbai and Jiang Peihuan fell silent. Seeing that neither of them spoke, Shui Yin whispered, "Think about it carefully. If you still want to marry Lu Xian despite all this, your mother won't stop you anymore." After saying this, Shui Yin left Jiang Shangbai's room. Jiang Hong looked helplessly at his eldest son, and followed Shui Yin out of the room. From the moment Shui Yin and Jiang Hong left, Jiang Changbai seemed to lose all his energy. "Elder brother?" Seeing his state, Jiang Peihuan couldn't help but call out softly, "Huan heir, I'm fine, you can go back. I'm tired and want to rest." "Then rest early, elder brother." After taking one last look at Jiang Changbai, Jiang Peihuan also left the room. Jiang Changbai lay on the bed, and, once the footsteps outside faded away, he immediately sat up. "Young master, where are you going?" Chang'an pushed open the door, just in time to see Jiang Changbai getting dressed. Full of panic, he hurriedly went over to him. But Jiang Changbai ignored him, continuing to dress. After he was dressed, he looked at Chang'an and said, "I'm going out, don't tell anyone." Chapter 123. You are incredibly rude, young master. Are you planning to see Miss Lu? Although Chang'an was a servant, he had grown up with Jiang Changbai and knew his master well. Don't tell anyone. This was a tacit agreement. Seeing Jiang Changbai heading out, Chang'an quickly said, "Young master, you're still injured. Let me accompany you." "No need." Jiang Changbua left the courtyard with those 2 words. By the time Chang'an tried to follow him, he was already out of sight. Elegant garden. "Aunt, it's all my fault. I've caused you trouble." Even though Lu Xiao didn't say anything, Lu Xian had already heard from the maid about what had happened in the chrysanthemum hall. Looking at Lu Xiao's red-rimmed eyes, Lu Xin's were full of guilt. When she heard her niece's words, Lu Xiao forced out a smile. "How could I blame you? It's getting late. Let's mansion to the residence early." "Xiao heir, don't worry. I'll personally send Xian heir home. Nothing will happen." Jiang Ren, standing on the side, quickly interjected upon hearing Lu Xiao and Lu Xin's conversation. "Thank you, uncle." Lu Xian stepped forward and bowed respectfully to Jiang Ren. Jiang Ren quickly helped her up. An hour later, Jiang Ren left the general's mansion with Lu Xian. However, on their way, Jiang Ren suddenly drew his sword and shouted at the person behind him. "Who's there, lurking in the shadows?" "Third uncle, it's me." As Jiang Ren's voice fell, Jiang Changbai, who had been hiding in the dark, came out on his horse. Seeing him, Jiang Ren was a bit surprised. "Changbai, what are you doing here?" Jiang Changbai didn't answer. Instead, he looked towards the carriage. Upon hearing Jiang Shangbai's voice, Lu Xian, who was in the carriage, couldn't help but clench her hands. Footsteps approached the carriage, followed by the voice of Jiang Changbai outside. "Miss Lu, I have a few words to say to you. I wonder if you..." "Young Master Jiang, there's no need to say any more." Before Jiang Changbai could finish, Lu Xian interrupted him from inside the carriage. Hearing the voice from the carriage, Jiang Changbai was stunned. At this moment Lu Xian spoke again. Uncle, it's getting late. We should go. Changbai, you should go back to the mansion. Jiang Ren glanced at his nephew and signaled the driver to keep going. The carriage slowly moved forward and finally stopped in front of the Lu mansion. We're here, Xian heir. Then, the curtain of the carriage was directly lifted. After getting out of the carriage, Lu Xian bowed to Jiang Ren. Uncle, sorry for the trouble. Jiang Ren didn't have a daughter. He had a close relationship with Lu Xiao and truly loved Lu Xian. Seeing Lu Xin's pale face, he stepped forward, patted her head gently and whispered, Stay home and be good. If anything happens, send someone to find me at the general's mansion. Xian heir, remember, your aunt and I don't want you to feel estranged. I understand, uncle. Lu Xian bowed once again. Jiang Ren glanced at her, and then mounted his horse. Jiang Peihuan learned about Lu Xin's departure the next morning. She realized that her third aunt had intentionally not told her. After breakfast, Jian Peihuan decided to visit Lu Xiao in Elegant Garden. Just as she was about to leave, she saw Shui Yin approaching. Mother! Huan heir, bring Yi heir out. What's going on? Your Auntie Zhong wants to divorce Yin Yang, but he is unwilling. Your Auntie Zhong has written to Qingzhou. Auntie Zhong parents have arrived, and Yin Yang's father has been alerted. The Yin family has sent someone to pick up Zhong Yi. Mother, let's go together. Yi heir is still young. If anything happens, Yi Xiao can help. I was thinking the same thing. So, you're going with me to the Yin family's mansion. The general's mansion was quite a distance away from the Yin family. It was not easy to ride a horse, because Zhong Yi was with them. 2 hours later, Jian Peihuan and Shui Yin arrived at the Yin family's door. Just as they got out of the carriage, Jiang Peihuan saw the soldiers standing at the door. Mother, who are these soldiers? They're probably brought by Uncle Zhong. Eldest miss, it seems these soldiers are under the command of young master. At this moment Dong Shui smiled and spoke. Hearing her words, Jiang Peihuan was somewhat confused. It wasn't until she entered the Yin family's home that she understood who the young master Dong Shui mentioned was. Zhong Kai, you are being incredibly rude. I am your uncle. How dare you lay hands on me? As Jiang Peihuan approached Zhong Yi's courtyard, she heard the sound of a fight. As she drew closer, she saw Yin Yang being embarrassingly beaten by a young boy. The boy seemed just slightly older than Jiang Songbai, yet his kung fu skills were truly exceptional. At this moment, Yin Yang was almost powerless against Zhong Kai's attacks. Hearing Yin Yang's words, the boy revealed a hint of mockery. Lord Yin, once my aunt is divorced from you, you'll have no relations with the Yin family. All Kai, stop. Shui Yin, witnessing the scene, quickly stepped forward. Hearing the voice, Zhong Kai instinctively halted and turned to look at Shui Yin and Jiang Peihuan. Only now did Jiang Peihuan get a good look at the young boy. He had large, captivating eyes, a handsome face, and 2 noticeable canine teeth at the corners of his mouth. Seeing Shui Yin, Zhong Kai looked slightly puzzled. After staring at her for a while, he joyfully ran towards her. You must be Aunt Yanzi. Yanzi was Shui Yan's nickname in the Shui family. She had been friends with Zhong Yu since childhood, so the Zhong family also liked to call her Yanzi. Zhong Kai had met Shui Yan when he was little. Upon hearing the familiar name, a smile appeared in Shui Yan's eyes. In the blink of an eye, you've grown so much. Aunt, who is this sister? This is my eldest daughter, Huan heir. Huan heir, this is Zhong Kai, your Auntie Zhong's nephew. Pleased to meet you, Sister Huan. Zhong Kai greeted Jiang Peihuan, revealing his canine teeth in a grin. Zhong Kai walked in front of Jian Peihuan, revealing his 2 canine teeth as he smiled and bowed. The boys got a nice smile and had a unique charm of Qingzhou. Seeing the smile in his eyes, Jiang Peihuan nodded and smiled. Hello, Zhong Kai. Zhong Kai, is this how the Zhong family taught you? Do you have any manners at all, you? Do you have the right to criticize me? Before Yin Yang could finish his sentence, Zhong Kai, full of anger, shouted at him. My aunt gave birth to your children, and yet you allowed your concubines to bully her. Do you think the Zhong family has no one to stand up for her? You. If an elder from the Zhong family had said these words, Yin Yang wouldn't have been able to retort. But these words coming from the mouth of Zhong Kai, a teenager, made Yin Yang so angry his eyes turned red. Seeing that Zhong Kai was about to speak again, Shui Yin quickly stepped forward and grabbed his arm. Zhong Kai, don't say any more. Auntie, he bullied my aunt. Where are Uncle and Auntie Zhong? Grandfather and grandmother won't be here for a while. Upon hearing this, a trace of confusion appeared in Shui Yan's eyes. Chapter 124. The Zhong family arrives just a few seconds later. Shui Yan understood the plans of the old master and mistress of the Zhong family. Regardless, the Yin family was related to the emperor, which made it impossible for the Zhong family to directly confront them. But Zhong Kai was different. He was just a young member of the family. Even if he was impolite to Yin Yang, it could still be justified. Oh Kai! At that moment, Zhong Ye's voice came from afar. Currently, Zhong Yu was still recovering from childbirth. When she saw Zhong Yu step out, supported by a maid, Shui Yan hurriedly approached. Yu, why are you out? That's right, Aunt, you're still recovering. You should not be out here. Please go back. When Zhong Kai saw Zhong Yu, his expression immediately became gentle. I am fine. Facing the concern of Shui Yan and Zhong Kai, Zhong Yu whispered. Then her gaze fell behind Jiang Peihuan. Madam, seeing Zhong Ye's expression, Dong Shui quickly brought Zhong Yi to her. Taking Zhong Yi from Dong Shui's arms, Zhong Ye's eyes filled with tears. Yin Yang, seeing all this, had a complex expression in his eyes. After a moment of thought, he stepped forward. Zhong Yu, the child. Stop, don't come closer. Upon hearing Yin Yang's voice, Zhong Yu cut him off coldly. Staring at the man in front of her, Zhong Yu's eyes filled with coldness. Yin Yang, I've told you. This child has nothing to do with you. Madam, what you're saying isn't right. The young master also bear the blood of the Yin family. How can he have nothing to do with his father? Hearing these words, everyone turned to look. They saw Madame Yen supporting the old Madame Yin approaching them. The old Madame Yin was wrapped in fine silk, but her face was harsh. With just one glance, Jian Peihuan looked away. Mother, why did you come here? Seeing the old Madame Yin approaching, Yin Yang quickly went to support her. Hearing Yin Yang's words, the old Madame Yin spoke coldly. If I didn't come, I'm afraid the Yin family would have been humiliated. All Qing, bring me the child. Yes, mother. Upon hearing the old Madame Yin's words, Madame Yin bowed respectfully, and then walked towards Zhong Yu. Madam, this is the old Madame's command. Give the child to... When Madame Yin approached, Zhong Yu lifted her leg and kicked her in the stomach. Madame Yin immediately fell to the ground. Oh, my stomach! Lying on the ground, Madame Yin clutched her belly and wailed. Everyone watched the scene in shock. Only when they heard Madame Yan's wail did they snap back to reality. The old Madame Yin looked at Madame Yin lying on the ground, her eyes filled with gloom. She pointed at Zhong Yu, her eyes full of anger. Zhong Yu, do you still respect me as your mother-in-law? How dare you commit violence in front of me? Old Madam, you must be joking. I have always respected you. But Madame Yin is only a concubine and tried to take my child. Shouldn't I teach her a lesson? You. All right. If this is the case, then today I will teach you how a daughter-in-law should behave. Someone tie Zhong Yu up. Old Madame Yin, aren't you going too far? Upon hearing old Madame Yin's words, Zhong Kai immediately wanted to step forward, but was held back by Shui Yan. Turning her head to look at old Madame Yin, Shui Yan spoke up with a displeased expression. Yet upon hearing her words, old Madame Yin revealed a trace of mockery in her eyes. Madame Jiang, since when has it been your place to intervene in the matters of the Yin family? The Yin family's matters may not be my concern, but my daughter from the Zhong family is not someone you can bully at will. The sound of orderly footsteps reached their ears, and Jiang Peihuan turned her head to see an elderly couple walking over. The old master was still dressed in military uniform, followed by an orderly group of soldiers. Upon seeing this, old Madame Yin showed a trace of panic in her eyes. But in Shui Yan's eyes, a hint of nostalgia was revealed. Uncle Zhong, Auntie Zhong. Old Master Zhong was already full of white hair, but he was in good spirits. The old Madame Zhong was a bit plump but still very imposing. Seeing Shui Yan, the old couple showed smiles. Yan heir, you've grown up so fast. Thank you for taking care of Ayu. Auntie, you and I grew up together. It would be rude of me not to help. Old Madame Zhong smiled and did not say anything. Instead, she looked at Zhongyu with red eyes. Ayu. Father, mother, your daughter is unfilial, causing you both to make this long journey. The trip from Qingzhou to the Jingdo would require at least 2 days of travel, even with the horse. Seeing Zhongyu kneel before them, old Madame Zhong hurriedly helped her up. Seeing her daughter's pale face, old Madame Zhong's eyes filled with tears. Ayu, we owe you an apology. If it wasn't for the sake of protecting the Zhong family, you wouldn't have to. Mother. Zhongyu hurriedly interrupted old Madame Zhong's words. At this moment old Master Zhong, who had been silent all this while, spoke up. We came here this time for the matter of your divorce. Since the Yin family has been treating you like this, you don't need to stay there anymore. Take the divorce letter, bring Yi heir and return to Qingzhou with me. Although Zhongyu had already made up her mind to divorce, she was still very worried about the Zhong family. But hearing her father's words now, her eyes were full of gratitude. She looked at old Master Zhong and bowed solemnly. Thank you, father. Everyone in the Yin family were all stunned, especially old Madame Yin. Traditionally, parents of the bride do not push for a divorce from the groom's side. At this moment, old Madame Yin, no longer afraid, turned to the Zhong family and said coldly, divorce peacefully is impossible. At most we will give you a divorce letter. Also, the child is the bloodline of my Yin family. Zhong, you can leave, but the child must stay. That's impossible. As soon as old Madame Yin's voice fell, Zhongyu spoke up. Yi heir already bears the Zhong family name. He has no connection with the Yin family. If it wasn't for Huan heir, Yi heir and one would have already been gone. Now Yin family want to take Yi heir away. It's absolutely impossible. Even if one die, it won't happen. As you can see, this is the good daughter that your Zhong family has taught. She dares to defy her mother-in-law like this. As a mother-in-law, you let maids insult your daughter-in-law. You as a person are also not qualified to be my daughter's mother-in-law. Faced with old Madame Yin's accusation, old Madame Zhong's retorted with a cold look in her eyes. For a moment, the entire courtyard was tense. Suddenly, old Master Zhong looked at Yin Yang. Lord Yin, what do you have to say about this? Calling him Lord Yin had already made old Master Zhong's stance clear. Hearing how he addressed him, Yin Yang's eyes revealed a complicated look. He did not look at old Master Zhong or anyone else, but at Zhongyu. After a moment of silence, he said in a low voice, do you really want to divorce me? Chapter 125, to Qingzhou. Yes. Zhongyu didn't want to deal with Yin Yang initially, but when she heard those words, she nodded, her eyes showing nothing but resolve. Seeing her nod, Yin Yang also nodded, then spoke softly. Okay. Yang heir, do you know what you're saying? At this moment old Madame Yin panicked. She looked at Yin Yang with disapproval in her eyes. But Yin Yang didn't look at her. Instead he turned to old Master Zhong. Father-in-law, if we're to divorce, we must follow the proper process. We need to inform the emperor as well. So for the next few days, you and your mother-in-law may stay in the mansion. There's no need for that. We can stay in an inn. Upon saying this, old Master Zhong directly addressed Zhongyu. Ayu, you should sort out your dowry as soon as possible. Tomorrow, I will have Akai and his men take your dowry away. As for Yi heir, let him stay with me at the inn. Yes, father. After saying this, old Master Zhong turned to Zhong Kai. Akai, for the next few days, you will stay in your aunt's courtyard. If anyone dares to bully your aunt, don't hesitate to fight them, regardless of the outcome. Yes, grandfather. Once these arrangements were settled, old Master Zhong and his wife old Madame Zhong left the Yin family with their people. As they approached the Yin family's gate, Shui Yin turned to Jiang Peihuan. Huan heir, come and greet Uncle Zhong and Auntie Zhong. Huan heir greets the old master and old madam. Seeing the elegant girl standing in front of them, old Madame Zhong's eyes filled with joy. She reached out and took Jiang Peihuan's hand, smiling. This is the first time I've met you. I should have brought a gift, but we were in such a hurry. I'll make up for it later. You're too kind, old madam. Being Jiang Hong's daughter, you must have learned martial arts, right? At this point, Old Master Zhong turned to Jiang Peihuan and asked. At this moment, Old Master Zhong looked at Jian Peihuan and asked. Upon hearing this, Jiang Peihuan nodded. I've trained for a few years. In that case, I'll give you this dagger. As Jiang Peihuan's voice fell, she saw Old Master Zhong present a dagger to her. Its black sheath gave off a chilling aura. When she unsheathed the dagger, she could hear a cold whistling sound. This dagger has accompanied me on the battlefield for many years, and it has killed many. Now I give it to you. Old man, Huan Er is a decent girl. Why are you giving her such a violent thing? Old Madame Zhong, who was nearby, frowned at Old Master Zhong upon hearing this. However, Jiang Peihuan respectfully bowed. Thank you, Old Master. Seeing the joy in Jiang Peihuan's eyes, the Old Master also showed a trace of a smile. Yan Er, you take Huan Er back to the mansion. Well, go find an inn. With that, Old Master Zhong prepared to mount his horse, but was stopped by Jiang Peihuan. Then, Jiang Peihuan turned to Shui Yan and said, Mother, didn't you prepare a dowry house for me on West Street? Why not let the Old Master and Old Madam stay there? It's more comfortable than an inn. Uncle Zhong, Auntie Zhong, please stay in one of my house. The environment there is much nicer than any inn. Old Master Zhong, having spent his life in battlefield, was straightforward. After hearing Shui Yan's proposal, he immediately went with them to the house on West Street. Because the Zhong family had traveled a long way, Shui Yan didn't bother them any further. After settling them in, she took Jiang Peihuan and left. However, once they were in the carriage, Jiang Peihuan noticed that Shui Yan seemed uneasy. Thinking back to Shui Yan's conversation with old Madame Zhong, Jiang Peihuan couldn't help asking, Mother, what's wrong? Did old Madame Zhong mention any troubles? It's not Auntie Zhong, it's your maternal grandmother. Maternal grandmother? Jiang Peihuan hadn't had much contact with the Shui family. She only remembered that after her family had an incident in her previous life, several of her cousins from the Shui family had visited her. Your maternal grandmother has been ill for half a year, but she didn't let your uncle tell me. As she spoke, worry and anxiety filled Shui Yan's eyes. Seeing her mother's expression, Jiang Peihuan said gently, Mother, why don't you go to Qingzhou to see grandmother? I can't. Even though your father has handed over the commander seal, the emperor hasn't fully restored his trust in him. If I go to Qingzhou now and the emperor hears of it, he will undoubtedly suspect your father. Upon hearing this, Jiang Peihuan frowned. After a moment of silence, Jiang Peihuan looked at Shui Yan and said, In that case, Mother, I'll go to Qingzhou. You? Yes. Nodding, Jiang Peihuan spoke softly. I will ride there with Yi Xiao and Deputy General Liu. Round trip on horseback will take about 4 days. I should be able to return in less than 10 days. Maternal grandmother has been ill for half a year without recovering. I suspect the doctors in Qingzhou have limited skills. Yi Xiao is proficient in medicine. It's a good opportunity to bring her to treat grandmother. Upon hearing Jiang Peihuan's words, Shui Yan seemed somewhat persuaded. Among all her concerns, her current most worry is for old Madame Shui's health. After a few seconds of silence, Shui Yan nodded. All right, then you should go tomorrow. No, Mother, I'll depart tonight. Meeting Shui Yan's gaze, Jiang Peihuan spoke softly. The sooner we leave, the sooner maternal grandmother can be treated. The mother and daughter hurried to the general's mansion. After hearing Shui Yan's words, Jiang Hong immediately nodded in agreement. Looking at Jiang Peihuan, Jiang Hong quietly instructed. When you go to Qingzhou this time, don't rush back. Spend some time with your maternal grandmother. If her health isn't good, send a letter back, and I will have your mother go to Qingzhou right away. I understand, Father. That night, Jiang Peihuan packed her things. Shui Yan initially intended to have her travel by carriage, so she could take some items to Qingzhou, but Jiang Peihuan directly refused. Jiang Peihuan rode her horse, Lai Feng, followed by Yi Xiao and Deputy General Liu. Yu Er and Lu Er also wanted to accompany them. But Jiang Peihuan didn't want to bring too many people, so she directly declined. Jiang Peihuan was unaware that as soon as the three of them left the general's mansion, someone entered the plum garden. This person was none other than Han Feng, who was holding a letter in his hand. However, Seeing the empty plum garden, Han Feng's eyes were full of confusion. Who's there? Yu Er was originally preparing to tidy up Jiang Paihuan's room when she saw a man in the yard. She sternly scolded him and only recognized Han Feng when he turned around. Your guard Han. Yes, and you are the eldest Miss Maid, aren't you? Seeing Yu Er nod, Han Feng quickly said, Where's the eldest miss? I'm here by my master's orders to deliver a letter to her. Eldest miss has went to Qingzhou. She went to Qingzhou. Seeing Yu Er nod, Han Feng couldn't help but sigh. Chapter 126. Just destroy her afterwards. He turned around and went to Jiang Shangbai's courtyard. Jiang Changbai was lying in bed recuperating from injuries. Upon seeing Han Feng come in, he quickly sat up. Greetings, young general. Weren't you with King Qing in Jiangzhou? Why are you here? I was ordered by the master to deliver a letter to you, young general. As he spoke, Han Feng pulled out a letter from his own clothes and handed it over to Jiang Changbai. Jiang Changbai took the letter without rushing to open it. Instead, he looked at Han Feng and laughed. Your master wouldn't made you rush all this way just to deliver this letter to me, right? Han Feng was originally reluctant to ask about Jiang Paihuan's affairs, but when he heard Jiang Changbai bring it up, he directly asked, Young general, do you know why the eldest miss suddenly went to Qingzhou? My maternal grandmother is not feeling well, and my mother can't leave Jingdou, so she sent Huan Er instead. Jiang Changbai said this openly upon hearing Han Feng's question, and with this information, Han Feng directly left the general's mansion. After Han Feng's departure, another person quietly left the general's mansion, a maid beside Jian Mei. An hour later, Pei Wu hurriedly entered Xiao Junhao's study. Since the incident with the Sea Hawk, Xiao Juanhao had not left the Prince Qing's mansion for a long time. At this moment, seeing Pei Wu enter, he looked up at him. Your Highness, I just received news that eldest Miss Jiang has left Jingdou. Where did she go? Upon hearing Jiang Paihuan's name, Xiao Juanhao immediately put down his brush and looked at Pei Wu. Looking at his expression, Pei Wu said quietly, She went to Qingzhou. Pei Wu, I remember there are often bandits in district. Your Highness, are you suggesting? Originally, I intended to make her mine, to use her for my purposes. Now that she has agreed to marry Xiao Nani, if she can't serve me, then let's just destroy her. You will arrange this personally? Yes, Your Highness. Jiang Peihuan was completely unaware of the news in Jingdou. Even though Lai Feng could travel 1,000 miles a day, the horses of Deputy General Liu and Yi Xiao were ordinary. At dawn, Deputy General Liu rode up to Jiang Peihuan. Eldest Miss, we can reach district by running for another half a day. Shall we rest first? Looking at the sky, Jiang Peihuan nodded, and seeing a small hill not far away, she pointed and said, Let's rest at the foot of that hill. After the three of them stopped at the foot of the mountain, Jiang Peihuan let Lai Feng to graze. Yi Xiao brought a water bottle and some dry food to Jiang Peihuan and said softly, Eldest Miss, please eat something. You too should eat as well. Jiang Peihuan took a sip of water, and then slowly tore a piece of the hard dry food and put it in her mouth. The rations were hard, but she didn't complain. She had eaten worse when she went to the battlefield with Jiang Hong at her young age, so the dry food wasn't unbearable for her. Eldest Miss, should we continue our journey tonight or rest in district? Given our current speed, we should reach district by evening. Well, rest there for 4 hours, and then continue our journey after dark. Jiang Peihuan liked traveling at night. The roads were less crowded, and they could move faster. Deputy General Liu and Yi Xiao had no objections to her plan. In the evening, Jiang Peihuan rode into district. District wasn't far away from Jingdou, but its prosperity paled in comparison. Along the way, Jiang Peihuan saw many beggars. Having lived through her past experiences, Jiang Peihuan was not a kind-hearted person. But seeing some children among the beggars, she glanced at Deputy General Liu. Eldest Miss, what can I do for you? Upon receiving Jiang Peihuan's gaze, Deputy General Liu immediately came to her side. Looking at the beggars, Jiang Peihuan said softly, Go buy some buns and give them to the beggars. Remember, only give them food, no money. Remember, only give me food. Don't give me money. Yes, eldest Mississippi. Deputy General Liu didn't know why Jiang Peihuan insisted on this, but he did as she asked. Eldest Miss, are you worried that if we give them money, those little beggars won't be able to keep it safe? After Deputy General Liu left, Yi Xiao turned to Jiang Peihuan and asked. Jiang Peihuan did not answer but nodded. After finding a simple inn and having dinner, Jiang Peihuan set off again with Deputy General Liu and Yi Xiao. After leaving in district and traveling half a day, they would reach Qingzhou. However, as they just left the city, Deputy General Liu frowned and looked at the two roads ahead. He whispered, Eldest Miss, let's take the main road. I've heard in district isn't very peaceful. Yes. With the idea of avoiding trouble, Jiang Peihuan rode Lai Feng to the main road. However, only an hour later, she saw torches up ahead. In the darkness, Jiang Peihuan couldn't see the faces of the people holding the torches. They were all masked with black cloth, but based on their attire, she guessed they were bandits. Who are you? Seeing them, Deputy General Liu immediately stepped forward, positioning himself in front of Jiang Peihuan, his eyes cold as he addressed the unknown group. The people across didn't respond. Instead, they studied Jiang Peihuan carefully, recognizing her as the one they were looking for. The leader of the men spoke directly. Take the woman in the middle alive, kill the other two. On hearing the man's words, Jiang Peihuan frowned, while a cold glint appeared in Yi Xiao's eyes. Such big talk. You think you can kill me? She taunted. With that, Yi Xiao was the first to draw her long sword. Seeing this, Deputy General Liu also drew his long sword. Both Yi Xiao and Deputy General Liu were top fighters, and Jiang Peihuan thought they would be more than enough to handle these bandits. However, the scene before her caused Jiang Peihuan to display a troubled expression. While the bandits' martial arts were inferior to Yi Xiao and General Deputy Liu, but their coordinated attack made it difficult for Yi Xiao and Liu to gain the upper hand. At this point, the previously inactive man suddenly drew his sword. Seeing him lunge towards Deputy General Liu, Jiang Peihuan quickly pulled out her whip from her waist, whipping it towards the man's wrist. Hearing the whooshing sound, the man dodged by twisting his body and quickly leaped onto his horse. Jiang Peihuan did not stop her attacks. With a flick of her wrist, the whip lashed towards the man's head. He dodged, a glint of malice in his eyes. I was willing to spare your life, don't push your luck. Seeing the man evade her whip twice, a troubled look appeared in Jiang Peihuan's eyes. Chapter 127. Lin Xingqian's past. Are you after my wealth or my life? As the man was about to strike, Jiang Peihuan said coldly. Upon hearing these words, the man paused and looked at Jiang Peihuan, retorting, Is there a difference? Of course there is. If you're after money, just name a price, I won't shortchange you. If you're after my life, I have no quarrel with you. Why would you want to kill me? Hearing Jiang Peihuan's words, the man fell silent. After a long time, he turned to Jiang Peihuan and confessed, To be frank, I am here on someone else's orders. Turns out, the life of a general's daughter like you is quite valuable. Someone has offered 100,000 silver coins for your life. I'll give you double the price you. It's too late. Seeing her puzzled look, the man continued. I might be a lowly man from the streets, but one have my honor. Having accepted the money, I can't break my promise. Therefore, I will take your life today. As his words faded, he unsheathed his sword, lunging at Jiang Peihuan. Jiang Peihuan quickly swung her long whip, but the man easily evaded her and stabbed towards her heart. In desperation, Jiang Peihuan leaned back and fell off her horse. Having practiced martial arts for a long time, including her previous life, Jiang Peihuan was not to be taken lightly. Despite diligent practice since her rebirth, she was clearly outmatched. You're no match for me, the masked man declared as they fought. Jiang Peihuan didn't respond, but continued to parry his moves. Soon, Jiang Peihuan's wrist was grabbed by the man. He exerted force, and the whip in Jiang Peihuan's hand was taken away by him. Now you, This was all part of Jiang Peihuan's plan. As the man seized her whip, she pressed a ring on her finger, releasing a small blade which stabbed into the man's wrist. He reacted swiftly, but the blade still punctured his arm. With a swift strike, the man pushed Jiang Peihuan away, and she fell to the ground. Miss! Upon witnessing this, Yi Xiao and Deputy General Liu were filled with worry, but were too entangled to help. The man glared at his injured arm, seething with rage. You are the first woman to ever hurt me. But today it is your day to die. As he spoke, he pointed his sword at Jiang Peihuan's throat. Jiang Peihuan bit her lip, pondering her next move, when a crisp sound reached her ears. She looked up to see the masked man's sword was sliced in half, and a familiar figure, Xiao Nani, stood before her. Even though he had his back to her, she recognized him instantly. Xiao Nani. Jiang Peihuan blurted out, unconsciously addressing him by name. The man turned to look at Jiang Peihuan, before turning back to engage the enemy. Seeing Xiao Nani suddenly appear, the masked man was surprised. After a few exchanges, his expression grew serious. In no time, Xiao Nani's sword pierced the man's shoulder. He swiftly pulled off the man's mask. You! As the mask fell, the man instinctively covered his face, but Jiang Peihuan had already seen it. She recognized the man. He was Lin Xingchen, Lin Ruhai's cousin. You dare to hurt her? You're simply tired of living. Xiao Nani's voice trailed off as he pointed his sword at Lin Xingchen's throat, but Jiang Peihuan's voice stopped him. Xiao Nani, wait. Huan Er, what did you just call me? Initially, Xiao Nani thought he misheard, but now hearing Jiang Peihuan call his name again filled him with joy. However, Jiang Peihuan quickly corrected herself. Your Highness, you. Huan Er. One hope you can call me by my name in the future. That's not right. Before Jiang Peihuan could finish, Xiao Nani gently cut her off. Seeing the man's earnestness, a hint of helplessness crossed her eyes. There's nothing wrong with it. You are my betrothed, and I allow you to call me by my name. Let's deal with the matter at hand first. Unwilling to argue about this, Jiang Peihuan changed the subject. Upon hearing her voice, Xiao Nani turned his gaze to Lin Xingchen. Huan Er, do you know him? Indeed. He is the only legitimate son of the Lin family, Lin Xingchen. You, how do you know who I am? Not just Xiao Nani. Even Lin Xingchen was surprised at Jiang Peihuan's knowledge. But Jiang Peihuan did not explain. She got to know Lin Xingchen because in her previous life, he kidnapped Lin Mengyao. This time, Xiao Juanhao personally went to rescue Lin Mengyao, even at the risk of revealing that he knew martial arts. At that time, Jiang Peihuan was worried about Xiao Juanhao, so she followed him. Now the Lin family is led by Lin Ruhai, but the Lin family's initial rise was because of Lin Xingchen's grandfather. From a blood relationship perspective, Lin Ruhai's line is just a side branch of the Lin family. However, the main line of the Lin family was mostly killed in battle, leaving only Lin Xingchen. To maintain his position, Lin Ruhai has always wanted to kill Lin Xingchen. I not only know who you are, but also the dispute between you and Lin Ruhai, Lin Xingchen. I don't know who sent you today, but one can cooperate with you. I presume you do not wish to live like a fugitive. Are you interested in reclaiming the Lin family? Why should I trust you? Upon hearing Jiang Peihuan's words, Lin Xingchen's eyes were full of complexity. After a moment of silence, he looked at Jiang Peihuan with cold eyes. However, Jiang Peihuan already knew that the other party was moved. After glancing at Lin Xingchen, Jiang Peihuan directly said, The enemy of the enemy is a friend. My quarrel with the Lin family is the reason. How can you help me? Can you lend me your troops? Lin Xingchen had heard of the conflict between the general mansion and the Lin family. Looking at Lin Xingchen, Jiang Peihuan smiled. The general's mansion naturally cannot help you with troops, but you can reclaim everything that originally belonged to you. Chapter 128. Xiao Nani's accompaniment. Jiang Peihuan continued to address Lin Xingchen. One see the bandits under your command train more like soldiers than bandits. Why not follow under the banner of King Cheng? With your skills, making great achievements is only a matter of time. Once you've proven yourself in battle, you can return to the Lin family and reclaim all you've lost with honor. Moreover, it's such a waste for a distinguished family's young master like you to become an outlaw. I don't believe in a free lunch in this world. Miss Jiang, what's your purpose in helping me? It's simple. First, tell me who wants to kill me. Second, helping you does no good for the Lin family, but it does help my general's mansion. Third, you have natural talent for leadership. It's a pity if your abilities aren't utilized on the battlefield. While Jiang Peihuan and Lin Xingchen spoke, Xiao Nani remained silent. However, when Lin Xingchen turned to him, Xiao Nani calmly said, "You hurt my future queen. For that you must die. But since Huan Er said that you are a born military genius, then for the sake of Qi Kingdom's people, I will give you a chance." Lin Xingchen might not trust Jiang Peihuan, but he trusted Xiao Nani. After hearing his words, Lin Xingchen knelt on one knee and bowed to Xiao Nani. "Greetings, Your Highness." Then Lin Xingchen looked back at Jiang Peihuan. "The one who sent me today is Prince Qing." "Xiao Juanhao?" The man didn't reveal his identity when he left, but I followed him and saw him enter Prince Qing's mansion. Upon hearing this, Jiang Peihuan became more certain of her thoughts. Lin Xingchen is not only a martial arts expert, but also a thoughtful person. Such a person would undoubtedly be a strong warrior on the battlefield. In her previous life, Xiao Juanhao spared Lin Xingchen's life, and later, Lin Xingchen fought for him, and made numerous military achievements. In this life, Jiang Peihuan wants to send Lin Xingchen into Xiao Nanye's hands. I will settle this score with him later. Upon hearing the name Xiao Juanhao, Xiao Nanye's eyes darkened. Then, Xiao Nani gave Lin Xingchen a token. "Take my token and go directly to the Xiaoqi camp. They will arrange everything for you when they see the token." "Yes, Your Highness." Lin Xingchen is a straightforward person. Once he has made up his mind, he is very obedient. Holding the token given by Xiao Nani, he left with his men. After they left, Jiang Peihuan turned to the man beside her. "Didn't you go to Jiangzhou? Why did you come here?" "I received a letter from Han Feng saying you were going to Qingzhou. And district is a must-pass route to Qingzhou, so one rushed over here hoping to run into you. What if we had just missed each other? Then one would go to Qingzhou." Hearing this, Jiang Peihuan looked surprised. Looking at Xiao Nani, she couldn't help but ask, "Don't you need to return to Jiangzhou?" "No need, the matter has been investigated. I have already asked Han Feng to deliver the letter to your elder brother. He will handle the rest. So, I can accompany you to Qingzhou next." "To Qingzhou?" "Yes." Seeing Xiao Nani nodding, Jiang Peihuan couldn't help but ask, "The round trip from Qingzhou to the Jingdo takes several days. Aren't you afraid the emperor will be looking for you?" "It's okay. I've already sent a letter to the emperor, saying I'm going to travel for a few days." It was originally a trio, but it ended up being a quartet. Xiao Nani and Jiang Peihuan rode their horses side by side, while Yi Xiao and Deputy General Lu followed behind. Jiang Peihuan originally wanted to rush to Qingzhou directly, but the slap from Lin Xingchen had caused her some internal injuries. So Xiao Nani insisted on resting overnight, before continuing the journey. There were no inns since they had already left the county, so they finally stopped at a rundown temple. You two split up, one to gather some firewood, the other to see if there's any food. As soon as they walked into the rundown temple, Xiao Nani gave instructions to Yi Xiao and Deputy General Lu. Seeing Xiao Nani alone by Jiang Peihuan's side, Deputy General Lu hesitated a little, but remembering Xiao Nanye's frequent late-night visits to the plum garden in Jingdo, he was at ease. Xiao Nani found a relatively clean corner and spread straw on the ground, then looked at Jiang Peihuan. "Huan Er, come sit here." Just as Jiang Peihuan sat down, she saw Xiao Nani heading outside. She instinctively asked, "Where are you going?" "I'm going to look for water nearby." Everyone's water bottles were empty. Xiao Nani took the water bottles and left the temple. However, worried about Jiang Peihuan, Xiao Nani didn't go far. He filled the bottles from a nearby creek and returned straight away. Jiang Peihuan was resting in the corner. When she heard a noise, she immediately opened her eyes. Seeing that it was Xiao Nani, she relaxed. "Have some water." The man opened the water bottle and held it to Jiang Peihuan's lips. Jiang Peihuan took the water bottle and had a few sips. "Are you done drinking?" Seeing Jiang Peihuan nod, Xiao Nani brought the water bottle to his mouth and drank a few mouthfuls of water from Jiang Peihuan's water bottle. He gulped down several mouthfuls of water, clearly thirsty. Jiang Peihuan initially wanted to say that it was her water bottle, but seeing Xiao Nani in this state, she couldn't help but ask, "Didn't you drink any water when you went to fetch it?" "I was worried about you being alone here, so I came back first." The man subconsciously spoke. After setting down the water bottle, he sat down next to Jiang Peihuan. At this moment, Yi Xiao and Deputy General Lu also walked in. Yi Xiao was holding a large bundle of firewood in her hands, while Deputy General Lu was carrying 2 cleaned fish. Once they sat down, Vice General Lu said softly, "Miss, Your Highness, there aren't many wild animals in this area, so we only managed to catch these 2 fish. Please make do with these." "It's okay, these 2 fish are quite big, enough for the 4 of us." After looking at the fish in Deputy General Liu's hands, Jiang Peihuan spoke softly. Each fish weighed 3 catties. Yi Xiao quickly lit the fire. Deputy General Lu set up the rack, and then the fish were placed on the fire to roast. Initially, both fish were in Deputy General Liu's hands, but suddenly Xiao Nani stretched out his hand. "Give me one." "Your Highness, I will. I'll roast the one Huan heir is going to eat." Upon hearing these words, Deputy General Lu didn't persist, and handed the larger one to Xiao Nani. Xiao Nani's movements were very skilled, which didn't surprise Jiang Peihuan. Others might not know, but she was well aware. When Xiao Nani fought in the war, he basically lived and ate with the soldiers, so it was very normal for him to know how to roast a fish. An hour later, Xiao Nani cut a piece of fish with a dagger and handed it to Jian Peihuan. "Huan heir, try it." Chapter 129. Arriving at Qingzhou, he cut a slice from the back of the fish, a piece with no bones. Jiang Peihuan took it from the Xiao Nani's hand and tasted it gently. "How does it taste?" It's good." There wasn't any flavor other than the fish itself, but the fish was quite fresh, so it tasted pretty nice. Hearing Jian Peihuan's words, Xiao Nani smiled and continued to cut the fish. After eating several pieces, Jiang Peihuan looked at Xiao Nani and said, "I'm full now. You should eat some too." Hearing Jiang Peihuan say she was full, Xiao Nani put his knife away. He was less meticulous when he ate, simply bringing the fish to his mouth. After chewing off the flesh, he tossed the fish bones into the fire. There was something charmingly ordinary about Xiao Nani in that moment. When he had thrown away the fish bones, Jiang Peihuan handed him her handkerchief. Looking at his puzzled expression, Jiang Peihuan said softly, "Your hands are greasy, wipe them." The man smiled, accepted the handkerchief from Jiang Peihuan, and wiped his hands. But instead of returning the handkerchief, Xiao Nani tucked it into his own sleeve. Witnessing this, Yi Xiao and Deputy General Lu, who were on the other side, were full of surprise. "What are you looking at?" Suddenly, a cold gaze fell on them. Facing Xiao Nani's unemotional look, Yi Xiao and Deputy General Lu hurriedly averted their eyes. That night, they all slept a while in the temple. In the early morning, when the sky was just beginning to lighten, Jiang Peihuan opened her eyes. As soon as she woke, she noticed that the coat she was wearing was Xiao Nani's. Turning her head, she found Xiao Nani was not there. "Eldest miss, you're awake." Yi Xiao sat across from Jiang Peihuan, and when she saw her open her eyes, she quickly said. At this time, Jiang Peihuan noticed that Deputy General Lu was also gone. Looking at Yi Xiao, she asked softly, "Where's Xiao Nani?" "His Highness went out with Deputy General Lu, saying they would find something for you to eat." "Huan heir, you're awake?" Before Yi Xiao could finish speaking, Jiang Peihuan saw Xiao Nani approaching. He was only wearing a thin shirt, and his sleeves were a bit wet. Deputy General Lu followed behind Xiao Nani, carrying 2 wild chickens in his hands. Seeing the 2 wild chickens, Jiang Peihuan's eyes showed a touch of surprise. "Eldest miss, His Highness' airwalk skill is truly extraordinary. These 2 wild chickens were caught by him." "Enough, go clean them up." Seeing Deputy General Lu about to say something more, Xiao Nani spoke directly. Seeing this, Yi Xiao quickly said, "Give them to me. I'll take them outside and clean them." "It's fine, you stay with the eldest miss, it'll be done soon." Seeing Yi Xiao reach out her hand, Deputy General Lu dodged it and walked out. Shortly after, Deputy General Lu came back in. carrying the cleaned wild chickens. Just like last night, the 2 wild chickens were put on the grill. Jiang Peihuan rarely eats greasy food in the morning, but she ate quite a bit of the freshly grilled wild chickens. However, as Jiang Peihuan was cleaning her hands, Xiao Nani suddenly handed her 2 small red fruits. Jiang Peihuan, having studied medicine, recognized them as wild hawthorn. Eating meat in the morning can cause indigestion. Eat these hawthorn fruits to help with digestion. Hearing the man's words, Jiang Peihuan put the hawthorn into her mouth. The fruit was very sour, but to Jiang Peihuan it tasted sweet. When the sky was bright, all of them rode to Qingzhou. Jiang Peihuan thought Xiao Nani would go with her to the Shui mansion. Just as she was contemplating how to decline, Xiao Nani reined in his horse. Huan heir, one won't go to the Shui mansion. 111 be at an inn in the city. If anything happens, let Yi Xiao come and find me. Okay, I'll come find you after I see my grandmother. There's no hurry. You should go and visit old Madame Shui first. The road ahead led to the Shui mansion. After setting things straight with Xiao Nani, Jiang Peihuan rode her horse onward. When Jiang Peihuan arrived at the entrance of the Shui mansion with Yi Xiao and Deputy General Liu, a young man in white was also reining in his horse. Jiang Peihuan recognized this young man, her second uncle's eldest son Xueqi. Xueqi looked at Jiang Peihuan on the horse, a hint of confusion in his eyes. At this moment, Deputy General Liu stepped forward. Greetings, young Master Shui. Upon seeing Deputy General Liu, Xueqi looked shocked. Then he turned to Jiang Peihuan and smiled softly. You are my cousin Peihuan. Cousin Qi, I thought you wouldn't recognize me. Counting the time, it had been several years since Jiang Peihuan and Xueqi had last met. In her previous life, the last time Jiang Peihuan saw Xueqi was when her family was being raided. Xueqi, leading his soldiers, questioned Xiao Juanhao but was ordered to be killed. People say that a girl changes a lot when she grows up. Our Peihuan has grown into such a beautiful young woman. Let's go meet grandmother. Seeing you will surely make her very happy. The Shui family are military generals. The old Madame Shui had 2 sons and 1 daughter. The eldest son was Shui Tao, the second son was Shui Hai, and Shui Yin was the youngest daughter. Jiang Peihuan's maternal grandfather died in battle when Shui Yin was very young. The old Madame Shui alone supported the Shui family and raised her children exceptionally well. Second young master? As soon as Xueqi entered the mansion, the servants greeted him. Seeing Jiang Peihuan by his side, the butler looked very surprised. Butler, go tell my elder brother that cousin Peihuan has arrived. I will take her to grandmother's courtyard. Miss. This is the little miss. Upon hearing Xueqi's words, the butler of the Shui family looked at Jiang Peihuan with great excitement. He had watched Shui Yin grow up since childhood. Shui Yin had not returned to Qingzhou for many years. Seeing Jiang Peihuan now, the housekeeper felt as if he was seeing a young Shui Yin. His eyes filled with excitement. Seeing the excited butler, Xueqi turned to Jiang Peihuan and said softly, Huan heir, this is Uncle Shui. He been taking care and watched Aunt Shui Yin grow up since young. Uncle Shui, nice to meet you. No. Little miss, you must not bow to an old man like me. Seeing Jiang Peihuan bowing to him, butler Uncle Shui hurriedly waved his hand, his eyes welling up. All right, Uncle Shui, go inform my elder brother. I will go to grandmother's place first. All right, I will go and inform eldest young master right away. After that, Xueqi took Jiang Peihuan's hand and headed towards the backyard. After crossing a small bridge, Xueqi led Jiang Peihuan into a courtyard. Grandmother. As soon as he entered the courtyard, Xueqi called out loudly. Inside the room, old Madame Shui was lying on the soft bed, her face a bit pale. Hearing the noise outside, she smiled and said to the maid beside her, Yun Gui, go see what that Qi boy is yelling about. I guess the second young master has brought another gift for you, old madam. You're right, Nanny Gui. I indeed have brought a gift for grandmother. Grandmother, let's see if you're satisfied with this gift. While speaking, Xueqi pulled Jiang Peihuan over to the old Madame Shui. Chapter 130. It's not illness, it's poisoning. Huan, are you Huan heir? Old Madame Shui appeared weak, But her eyes lit up with excitement as she looked at the person brought before her by Shui. As she spoke, tears rolled down old Madame Shui's cheeks. Jiang Peihuan hadn't seen old Madame Shui for a long time, but seeing the old woman's tears made her heart feel hot. Stepping forward, Jiang Peihuan knelt down. Huan Er greets grandmother. Yun Gui, quick, help Huan Er up. Seeing Jiang Peihuan kowtowing before her, old Madame Shui quickly ordered the person beside her. Grandmother, one brought you this gift to make you happy. If I made you sad, that would be my fault. My elder brothers will punish me when they arrive. You indeed need a lesson. As soon as Shui finished speaking, a clear male voice sounded from outside. Jiang Peihuan turned her head and saw a scholarly young man enter the room. This was Shui Tao's eldest son Shui. Second brother, I heard our cousin Huan is here. Where is she? A young man in a green shirt appeared behind Shui. This was Shui Tao's second son, Shuizhan. You guys don't scare Huan Er. Old Madame Shui, seeing the three young men, her eyes filled with smiles. When her gaze landed on Jiang Peihuan, her smile deepened. Reaching out and holding Jiang Peihuan's hand, the old madam began. Huan Er, these are. Grandmother, there's no need for introductions. I know them. Saying this, Jiang Peihuan stepped forward and greeted softly. Huan Er greets cousin Ji, cousin Zhan. Seeing Jiang Peihuan correctly say their names, both Shui and Shuizhan looked surprised. Beside them, Shui asked directly, Huan Er, how can you call us accurately? Cousin Chi, have you forgotten? When one was a child, I stayed here with my mother for half a month. But you were just a few years old then. This shows that our Huan Er is talented and smart. Cough, cough, cough. Hearing the laughter of everyone, old Madame Shui's eyes were filled with joy, but her emotions stirred, and she began to cough. Old Madam, are you all right? Yin Gui, an elderly servant next to her, quickly came to pat her back when she saw old Madame Shui coughing. Seeing this, Jiang Peihuan quickly said, Grandmother, one came here after hearing from the old Madame Zhong that you are not well. I have a servant girl whose medical skills are outstanding. Grandmother, could you let her examine you? That old woman, I told her not to tell Shui Yan, but she still said it. Upon hearing Jiang Peihuan's words, old Madame Shui laughed and said. She then turned to Jiang Peihuan and said, Huan Er, don't listen to their nonsense. I'm fine, it's just cough, cough. Before she could finish, the old madam started coughing again. Seeing this, Jiang Peihuan quickly said, Grandmother, please let Yi Xiao have a look. Fine, then let her take a look at me. Old Madame Shui had seen countless doctors in the past half a year, and had given up hope for her health. However, not wanting to disappoint Jiang Peihuan, she nodded in agreement. Seeing the old madam nodding, Jiang Peihuan called out softly, Yi Xiao, come in. Yi Xiao was waiting outside the door. Upon hearing Jiang Peihuan's voice, she immediately entered. Yi Xiao, come and take Grandma's pulse. Yes, eldest Mississippi. Yi Xiao bowed to everyone in the room, then approached old Madame Shui, reaching out to take her pulse. Usually, it only took a moment to take her pulse, but this time, Yi Xiao took half a time before releasing old Madame Shui's hand. Everyone from the Shui family looked worried. Shui broke the silence. Yi Xiao, is my grandmother sick? Yi Xiao stood up and addressed Jiang Peihuan and the Shui family. Eldest Miss, gentlemen, old Madame Shui is not sick, she is poisoned. Poisoned? How could she be poisoned out of the blue? Upon hearing Yi Xiao's words, everyone in the Shui family changed their expressions. Shuizhan was the first to react. I'm going to inform our parents right now. Cousin Zhan, wait. As Shuizhan prepared to leave, Jiang Peihuan quickly spoke up, causing Shuizhan to stop and look at her. Facing Shuizhan's puzzled expression, Jiang Peihuan said quietly, Cousin Zhan, the people around grandmother are all close to her. Even her food and drink are carefully managed. If she is poisoned, one fear the poisoner may be someone from within the house. Therefore, I think it's best not to spread this news until the poison is neutralized. Huan Er, you mean to say that the person who poisoned our grandmother is someone from our house? At this point, Shuiji looked at Jiang Peihuan and spoke. Jiang Peihuan nodded in agreement but said nothing. The room fell silent. After a long while, old Madame Shui looked at her grandsons and said, You boys, Handle this according to what Huan Er has said. No one must know about this, not even your parents. Yes, grandmother. Shueji, Shueqi and the others had been raised by old Madame Shui since they were children, so they respected and listened to her. Yi Xiao, do you know what poison our grandmother has been given? Can it be cured? Don't worry, eldest miss, the poison can be cured. Seeing that old Madame Shui was looking tired, Jiang Peihuan suggested she take a rest. After they had left old Madame Shui's courtyard, Yi Xiao turned to Jiang Peihuan and said, Eldest miss, after the poison in the old madam's body is removed, she will still need a period of rest. Therefore, I am afraid we may need to stay in Qingzhou for half a month. That's fine. One will write to my mother and inform her of the situation here with my grandmother. Huan Er, I'll walk you back to your room. Hearing a voice from behind, Jiang Peihuan turned her head to see Shueqi coming her way. Shueji and Shuezhan had other matters to attend to, so they bid Jiang Peihuan farewell and left. Do you have some free time, cousin Qi? I have been free these past few days. With that, Shueqi accompanied Jiang Peihuan to her quarters. Before her marriage, Shueyan lived in a well-maintained courtyard, and that's where Jiang Peihuan was now accommodated. Huan Er, you must be tired. Take a rest. Later, we will have to go to grandmother's quarters for dinner. I'll come and find you then. Take care, cousin Qi. Yi Xiao, what poison has our grandmother been given? Jiang Peihuan had asked this question earlier in old Madame Shui's quarters, but Yi Xiao hadn't answered then. Once Shueqi had left, Jiang Peihuan repeated her question. After pouring a glass of water for Jiang Peihuan, Yi Xiao finally answered, Eldest miss, old Madame Shui was poisoned with rosemary. Rosemary? Seeing Yi Xiao nod, Jian Peihuan's eyes revealed some gloominess. Rosemary is a slow-acting poison. It takes at least a year, and up to 3 for the victim to die unnoticed. Chapter 131. Meeting the Shui family members, eldest miss. To cure the poison of rosemary, you need to use the fresh roots of a precious herb in the medicine. Although the root of this herb is not a rare medicine, it is also not commonly found. No matter, tomorrow we will go together to the Qing mountain outside the city. Qingzhou is full of mountains, hence the prevalence of medicinal herbs. Upon hearing this, Yi Xiao nodded and didn't say anything else. At dusk, when it was just getting dark, Nanny Yun Gui came to the courtyard. Are you looking for the eldest miss? As soon as Nanny Yun Gui, Yi Xiao came out. Has the young little miss rested well? Nanny, did grandma send you to call me? Before Nanny Yun Gui could answer, Jiang Peihuan came out from the room. After taking 2 steps forward and giving a bow, Nanny Yun Gui looked at Jiang Peihuan and said, Young little miss, have you rested well? The old madam wants to see you and specifically asked me to take you to her. Okay, I will go now. Did you sleep well, young little miss? Jiang Peihuan didn't usually sleep during the day, and it was even harder to sleep in an unfamiliar environment. However, hearing Nanny Yun Gui's words, she still smiled and nodded. I rested very well. Jiang Peihuan followed Yun Gui in silence to the courtyard of old Madame Shui. Before they reached the entrance, they heard the lively voices inside. Mother, you must be happy now that Huan Er has come. Let her stay in the house for a while to keep you company. Yes, mother. I'll ask Nanny Yun to prepare some of Yen Er's favorite food for when Huan Er goes back, so she can take it to Yen Er. The speakers were Shui Tao and Shui Hai. Shui Tao looked fierce, but Jiang Peihuan knew better than anyone that her big uncle was very honest. Shui Hai was more handsome and free-spirited, but whether it was Shui Tao or Shui Hai, both brothers were very fond of their youngest sister Shui Yan. Old madam, young little miss is here. Everyone in the main hall looked towards the door. As soon as she saw Jiang Peihuan, the old Madame Shui showed a smile and quickly waved her over. Huan Er, come here. Greetings, big uncle, second uncle, and 2 aunts. After Jiang Peihuan bowed to the old madam, she paid her respects to Shui Tao and Shui Hai. In a blink of an eye, our Huana has grown so big. The person who spoke was Jiang Peihuan's second aunt Su Yunyang. Su Yunyang and Shui Yin were not only good friends, but also sisters-in-law, and they were always close. So seeing Jiang Peihuan now, Su Yeniang's eyes were full of smiles, and she held Jiang Paihuan's hand tightly. Seeing the smile in Su Yeniang's eyes, Jiang Paihuan's eyes also lit up with a smile. But just as she was about to speak, a sharp female voice rang out. Second sister-in-law. Those who knows will know that Huan Er is our niece. Those who don't know would think she is our Shui family's miss. Hearing this voice, Jiang Peihuan immediately knew that the person speaking was her eldest aunt, Wang Fingyi. Wang Fingyi was the legitimate youngest daughter of the Wang family. Compared to the Wang family, the Shui family had a lower status. Moreover, Wang Fingyi had always disliked Shui Tao, who she thought was a crude man. However, her own grandfather had insisted on marrying her to the Shui family, seeing the potential in the Shui brothers. The people of Shui family knew that Wang Fingyi was married beneath her status, so they always gave her some leeway. Even Shui Tao, who didn't mind his bossy wife, took a step back. But hearing her words now, Shui Tao's face grew cold. What nonsense are you talking about? Huan Er is Yin Er's daughter, and naturally, she's also a daughter of our Shui family. Shui Tao, have you lost your mind? The Shui family has only one daughter, and that is Ru Er. Mother, why are we having our meal at grandmother's today? As Wang Fingyi's words fell, a woman dressed in red appeared at the door. This was Shui Tao's illegitimate daughter Shui Ru. The Shui family was a military family, and didn't pay much attention to the distinction between legitimate and illegitimate children. Furthermore, Shui Ru was the only girl in the Shui family, so she was a bit spoiled. Your sister Huan Er came to the mansion today. How come you only got back now? Shui Tao looked at his daughter and spoke in a cold voice. Despite being somewhat afraid of her father, Shui Ru felt less fearful seeing Wang Fingyi seated to one side. I went out to buy jewelry today. Enough, greet your sister Huan Er first. Whether it was in her past or present life, Jiang Peihuan didn't have much interaction with Shui Ru. The only thing she knew was that in her past life, when she was manipulated by Xiao Juanhao, Shui Ru had come to mock her on purpose. However, at that time, Jiang Peihuan could no longer care about her anymore. Cousin. In front of all the Shui family members, Jiang Peihuan nodded at Shui Ru. Why did you suddenly come to my house? Looking at Jiang Peihuan, Shui Ru directly asked. As soon as she finished speaking, everyone frowned. Just when old Madame Shui was about to get angry, Jiang Peihuan quickly said, My mother missed grandmother, so she sent me here to check on her. Hearing this, Shui Ru pursed her lips, but just as she was about to speak, old Madame Shui said, Enough, let's eat first. Those who don't want to eat here can go back to their own yards. When she said the last sentence, old Madame Shui's eyes fell directly on Shui Ru. In the Shui mansion, old Madame Shui was the decision-maker, and thus Shui Ru was always careful not to displease her. Seeing the expression in old Madame Shui's eyes, Shui Ru looked a little uncomfortable. But she didn't dare to blame Madame Shui, so she glared at Jiang Peihuan instead. Huan Er, one heard from Yin Er that you and His Highness King Chung have already made a marriage agreement. The Shui family didn't have so many rules and didn't believe in the rule of not speaking at mealtimes. So just as Jiang Peihuan sat down at the table, she heard Shui Hai's words. Putting down her chopsticks, Jiang Peihuan nodded. Yes, the emperor has given his blessing to our marriage. His Highness King Chung is young but already famous, a young hero. If you marry him, it would also be. He has spent years on the battlefield, he is a rough man. He and you, my cousin, seem well matched. Before Shui Hai could finish his sentence, Shui Ru cut him off. As an elder, it wasn't appropriate for Shui Hai to argue with Shui Ru, a younger family member. But Shui Qi did not hold back. He put down his chopsticks, and with a mocking gaze he said to Shui Ru, Do you have any manners? Interrupting an elder while he is speaking. Is that how your teacher taught you? For Shui Qi, who was of the same generation as her, Shui Ru didn't care at all. Hearing his words, she spoke disdainfully. Did one say anything wrong? Isn't King Chung a rough man after years of fighting? Cousin, do you know that His Highness King Chung is the emperor's brother, and also the royal uncle? If you talk about him behind his back, you could be punished. If Shui Ru talked about herself, Jiang Peihuan could let it go for the sake of the Shui family. But she couldn't bear it when Shuiru talked about Xiao Nani. Looking at Shuiru, Jiang Peihuan spoke calmly. Chapter 132. His Highness is going to kill your cousin. Jiang Peihuan spoke softly, and her eyes were cold when she did. Seeing this, Shuiru was a bit scared. Observing from the side, Wang Fingyi said, Huan Heir, one don't mean to criticize you as your aunt, but you're coming off too strong for just a casual comment made by Shuiru. Old Madam General King Qing is here. Just then the butler Shueshu walked up. King Qing? Why is he here all of a sudden? The Shui family looked at Jiang Peihuan, and she also looked at the entrance. A man in white, holding a fan, was walking their way. The man was elegant and noble. Shuiru, watching the man approaching, was completely stunned. After a few seconds, her eyes were filled with admiration. I was passing by and heard that Huan Heir was here, so I came. One hope I'm not bothering anyone. Your visit is our honor, Your Highness. The old madam of the Shui family was going to bow, but Xiao Nani stopped her. In a few months, Huan Heir and I will be married. You don't need to bow to me. Just treat me like a family member. In that case, why don't you stay with us tonight? Would that be too much? Hearing this, Xiao Nani seemed interested, but he pretended to be modest. Of course not. This was said by Shui Tao. Shui Tao turned to Shueshu. Tell the kitchen to make another meal, and bring some good wine. Yes, General. Since everyone had already started eating, they couldn't let Xiao Nani eat leftovers. They had to prepare fresh food for Xiao Nani. The old madam wanted to give Xiao Nani the main seat, but he preferred to sit next to Jiang Peihuan. Your Highness King Qing, since you and Huan Heir will be married soon, we are practically family now. Let's drink to that. Shui Tao was a fan of drinking, but he was the only one in the Shui family who could handle a lot of alcohol. The old madam usually didn't allow him to drink much, but today she didn't say anything due to Xiao Nani's presence. Shui Tao asked butler Shui to bring out his best wine. Hares to you, General Shui. Hearing Shui Tao's words, Xiao Nani picked up his glass and finished his drink in one gulp. Seeing this, Shui Tao was thrilled. You're very direct, Your Highness. At the table, Xiao Nani mostly talked to Shui Tao, but he always looked at Jiang Peihuan. And Shuiru only looked at Xiao Nani. After 3 rounds of drinks, Xiao Nani wasn't drunk at all, but Shui Tao was. Seeing this, Xiao Nani directly addressed the old madam. Old Madam Shui, 1 a.m. a bit tired. I'd like to rest now. Old Shui, show His Highness to the bamboo garden. Old Madam, let Huan Heir take me. Before the old madam could finish, Xiao Nani looked at Jiang Peihuan. Jiang Peihuan, looking into his eyes, said softly, Grandma, let me take His Highness. One was planning to rest anyway. All right, then you should rest early. Hearing this, Xiao Nani and Jiang Peihuan left the old madam's courtyard together. When they stepped outside, Jiang Peihuan couldn't help but ask the man next to her. Didn't you say you'd wait for me at the inn? Why are you here? I thought you'd come to see me when you were free, but you didn't, so I missed you and came to the Shui mansion. If you don't like it, one can leave right now. The man's eyes were gentle. Hearing him, Jiang Peihuan felt a headache coming. At first, she thought Xiao Nani was cold and mean, but after spending more time with him, she saw he was quite needy. Forget it, since Your Highness are already here, please stay. Hearing this, Xiao Nani's eyes revealed a smile. Knowing Jiang Peihuan was tired, Xiao Nani didn't bother her that night. He let her rest. But after half an hour, someone knocked on Xiao Nani's door. He thought it was Jiang Peihuan and opened the door smiling. Huan Heir, you? Who are you? Seeing Shuiru at the door, Xiao Nani's smile vanished instantly. He looked distant and cold. But Shuiru wasn't bothered. Looking at Xiao Nani's handsome face, she spoke softly. Your Highness, I'm Shui family's daughter. One made a soup to help you sober up. You, no need. One don't want it. Xiao Nani interrupted her before she finished. As he was about to close the door, Shuiru panicked. She quickly reached out her hand. Your Highness, listen to me, go away. As she reached out, Shuiru grabbed Xiao Nani's sleeve. Seeing this, Xiao Nani looked angry. He pulled his sleeve away from her and scolded her coldly. Shuiru's eyes were filled with fear when she heard Xiao Nani's words. However, When she looked at the man's face and thought of his noble status, she gathered her courage and said, "Your Highness, I'm Huan Heir's cousin. Huan Heir is about to become your princess consort, and I like you very much too. Plus, I'm a better match for you than Huan Heir." After saying this, Shuiru went up and hugged Xiaonani. The man's expression changed. He reached out his hand and threw Shuiru away. Xiaonani didn't hold back. Shuiru was thrown into a tree and immediately coughed up blood. "Young miss." Seeing Shuiru lying on the ground, her maid Lin Heir was terrified and rushed over. The commotion here also alerted the people of the Shui mansion. When they arrived, they saw Xiaonani tearing off his coat and cutting it into pieces with his sword. And he was pointing his sword at Shuiru. "Eldest miss, hurry, go to the bamboo garden. Something has happened." Jiang Peihuan was about to lie down when she heard Deputy General Liu's voice. She opened the door confused. "What happened?" "His Highness is going to kill your cousin." "What?" Hearing Deputy General Liu, Jiang Peihuan looked shocked. Without saying anything else, she went straight to the bamboo garden. As she entered, she saw the Shui family members on the ground. Xiaonani was angrily looking at Shuiru with the sword in his hand. She quickly went up to him. "Xiaonani?" Hearing her voice, Xiaonani's anger disappeared instantly, replaced by a soft look. "Why are you here?" Chapter 133. Shuiru was punished. What happened? Approaching Xiaonani, Jiang Peihuan asked in a soft voice. At her words, Xiaonani lost his gentle look and stared at Shuiru coldly. If glares could kill, Jiang Peihuan was sure Shuiru would have been cut into pieces by now. Xiaonani didn't answer Jiang Peihuan. Instead, he looked at Shui Tao, who was kneeling in front of him. "General Shui, your family is from a military background, but you should at least know manners. A single woman, who knows I am engaged, shamelessly threw herself at me. Is this how your family raises its children?" Hearing Xiaonani's words, everyone's eyes fell on Shuiru. Shuiru's face turned pale, and her eyes were filled with fear. She thought that Xiaonani would accept her, and like her if she offered herself to him. She had also thought it through. Jiang Peihuan was Xiaonani's main consort. She did not ask for the position of the main consort. She only wanted the position of the secondary consort. Even for the sake of the Shui family, Jian Peihuan could not make things difficult for her. Shuiru's plan was very good. But she did not expect that Xiaonani did not want to look at her at all. He did not even want to have any contact with her. She had only touched him once, but he had already injured her. When Shui Tao heard this, he woke up from his drunk state. Looking at Xiaonani, he quickly said, "Please forgive me, Your Highness, for failing to discipline my family properly." Xiaonani. Seeing her two uncles kneeling on the ground, Jiang Peihuan was a little worried. Hearing her voice, Xiaonani lost some of the coldness in his eyes. After a moment of silence, he looked at Shui Tao and said, "For the sake of Huan Heir, one won't pursue tonight's matter. But for the few days 1 a.m. in the mansion, I do not wish to see her again." Everyone knew who she was referring to. Shuiru knew that too. She never thought that things would turn out this way. Although she was the illegitimate daughter of the Shui family, being the only daughter of the Shui family, in this Qingzhou, she had always gotten her way. This was the first time she was so rejected. Shuiru's eyes were filled with unwillingness. She looked at Xiaonani and subconsciously said, "Your Highness, where do one fall short compared to Jiang Peihuan? I..." "Shut up." Before Shuiru could finish her sentence, Shui Tao interrupted her with a cold glare. Shuiru still wanted to say something, but seeing Shui Tao's angry face, she kept quiet. And when Xiaonani heard this, he finally spoke, but his words made Shuiru's already unpleasant face look even worse. Looking at Shuiru, Xiaonani spoke in a calm tone. "On what basis do you compare with Huan Heir? In my eyes, you're not even comparable to one of her fingers." Shuiru looked shocked when she heard this. Afraid that she might anger Xiaonani further, Shui Tao told Shuiji and Shuizhan to take her away. "Take her back to her room. Nobody can let her out without my permission." "Yes, father," said Shuiji and Shuizhan, taking Shuiru away quickly. When Shuiru was gone, Xiaonani told Shui Tao, "General Shui, it's late. You should rest early." From Xiaonani's words, It felt like nothing bad had happened before. But no one from the Shui family dared to say another word, and left immediately. Just before Jiang Peihuan arrived, they had seen Xiao Nanyes's momentum and demeanor, which made them finally understood who he really was. After the Shui family left, Jiang Peihuan told Xiao Nanyi, "It's late, you should go to sleep. I'm leaving too." Just as she was about to leave, her hand was held by the man beside her. "Huan are you angry?" Xiao Nanyi asked in a careful tone. Jiang Peihuan was indeed a little upset, but not at Xiao Nanyi, but because of Shuiru. In the end, Jiang Peihuan told Xiao Nanyi, "Why would one be angry? My future husband is so handsome and charming, one should be happy. Don't worry, you'll always be the only one in my heart. I only belong to you. One won't let any other women touch me." After Jiang Peihuan spoke, Xiao Nanyi responded. At first, Jiang Peihuan thought Xiao Nanyi was just trying to make her feel better. But she saw that he was serious. Immediately, the little discomfort in her heart disappeared. Looking at Xiao Nanyi, she told him, "It's late, you should rest. Stay with me a little longer." When Xiao Nanyi heard this, he responded quickly, but Jiang Peihuan shook her head. "No, I need to sleep early tonight. I have to get up early tomorrow." "What do you need to get up early for?" "My grandma was poisoned by rosemary. To cure her, I need fresh roots of a plant called 100-grass root. I'm going to Qingqing Mountain tomorrow to get them. Then one will go with you tomorrow morning." Jiang Peihuan originally wanted to refuse, but seeing the man's determined expression, she nodded her head. After confirming the time with Xiao Nanyi, Jiang Peihuan left the bamboo garden and went to her own courtyard. Nearby in the Hua garden, someone was shouting, "You, it's all your fault." Shuiru was hurting the maid kneeling in front of her. The young maid, full of tears, didn't dare to resist and could only shiver and try to avoid her. Seeing her attempt to evade, Shuiru intensified her strength. "You lowly servant, you dare to hide, you. What are you doing?" Suddenly, the door opened and Wang Fingyi walked in. When Shuiru saw her, she ran to her. "Mother, you're finally here. Let me out, please." "You should stay in your room for now." Wang Fingyi sat on a chair, looked at Shuiru and spoke softly. Shuiru looked shocked when she heard this. She whispered, "Mother, aren't you going to help me? King Chung already said that he doesn't want to see you until he leaves the Shui mansion. You need to stay in your room." Upon hearing Shuiru's words, Wang Fingyi responded directly. Shuiru was the daughter of Wang Fengji's maid. Originally, Wang Fingyi didn't like Shuiru, but when her mother died giving birth to her, Wang Fingyi took care of her. In addition, Shuiru is the only daughter of the Shui family, so Wang Fingyi is quite good to her. But what happened tonight made Wang Fingyi upset with Shuiru. Chapter 134. Finding the 100-grass root. Wang Fingyi looked at Shuiru and said coldly, "Even when you throw yourself at people, no one wants you. You're as useless as your mother." Mother. This was the first time Wang Fingyi had used such words with Shuiru. Shuiru was shocked to see the mocking look in her eyes. Wang Fingyi stood up. "Stay here for now," she said, then left Shuiru's room. Wang Fingyi knew Shuiru's intentions. She was happy to see them fulfilled, because Shuiru called her mother. If Shuiru could truly enter the king's mansion, her status in the Shui family would also rise. But looking at the closed door, Wang Fingyi felt disappointed. Jiang Peihuan didn't know about this mother-daughter dispute. The next day at dawn, Jiang Peihuan was ready to leave. When she and Yi Xiao left their room, they saw Xiao Nanyi waiting outside. When he heard them, he turned around. "Huan didn't we say we would leave at dawn? Why are your highness up so early?" The man didn't answer but walked forward and felt her hand. Sensing her fingertips were slightly cold, he looked at Yi Xiao and said, "Go fetch a cloak." Hearing Xiao Nanyes's words, Yi Xiao immediately turned and went into the room. A moment later, Yi Xiao came back with a cloak. As she was about to put it on Jiang Peihuan, a hand reached out. Taking the cloak from Yi Xiao's hand, Xiao Nanyi carefully put it on Jiang Peihuan. After tying the collar, he softly said, "It's windy in the mountains. Let's go." After a thorough check to ensure Jiang Peihuan wouldn't catch a cold, the man led her away. Deputy General Liu had already led Jue Yin and Lai Feng out. Just as the four of them were about to mount their horses, Jiang Peihuan heard a voice from behind. Huan Heir, where are you going? It turned out that Xueqi was up for training, and happened to see Jiang Peihuan when they are leaving. When he got closer, he saw King Cheng and saluted him. Greetings, Your Highness King Cheng. Looking at Xueqi, Xiao Nani nodded. Then, Xueqi turned to Jiang Peihuan and walked to her side. Huan Heir, what's happening? After briefly explaining the situation of Madame Xue, Jiang Peihuan continued. I'm going to Qingqing Mountain to find the 100 grass root. To go with you. Upon hearing this, Xueqi immediately said. No matter how Jiang Peihuan refused, Xueqi insisted on going with them. In the end, Jiang Peihuan could only bring him along. They all rode to the foot of Qingqing Mountain. When they reached there, the sky was already bright. The path was not suitable for horses, so they could only tie the horses to a tree nearby. As Jiang Peihuan was about to tie the reins in her hand, Xiao Nani took them from her. I'll do it. Hearing his words, Jiang Peihuan directly handed the reins to him. Xiao Nani tied Jue Yin and Lai Feng together. Seeing this, Jiang Peihuan's eyes flickered, but she didn't say anything. At this time, Xueqi came over. Huan Heir, can you tell me where we can find the 100 grass root? Which path is nearer on Qingqing Mountain? It usually grows on shady cliffs, she replied. Hearing this, Xueqi thought for a moment before suggesting. Then let's take the small path. Saying this, he started walking in the left direction. Compared to the main road, this small path looks more difficult to walk. Looking at the difficult path, Jiang Peihuan asked Xueqi. Cousin Qi, where does this path go? To the cliff on the mountain top. Jiang Peihuan originally planned to go straight to the top of the mountain. Hearing this, she nodded and prepared to move forward. But just as she was about to step forward, she heard a low voice. I'll lead. Seeing this, Xueqi quickly said, Your Highness, I'm more familiar with this path. Let me lead the way. Okay. Xiao Nani didn't refuse Xueqi's suggestion. Seeing him nod, Xueqi stepped forward, followed by Xiao Nani, and then Jiang Peihuan. The path was very steep. After a while, it became almost vertical. Thankfully, they all knew martial arts. Ordinary people would be exhausted. Whenever they encountered a rugged path, Xiao Nani would hold Jiang Peihuan's hand and pull her up, so she didn't tire out. We're almost there. Xueqi looked ahead and said softly. An hour later, they reached the top of the mountain. Apart from Xiao Nani and Jiang Peihuan, the other three were a little tired. If Xiao Nani hadn't been helping her, Jiang Peihuan believed she'd be just as tired. After everyone rested, Jiang Peihuan suggested, let's split up to search. After describing the characteristics of the 100 grass root to the group, Jiang Peihuan warned, if you find it, don't pull it out directly. The root is medicine, but the grass is poisonous. Touching it can harm your skin. Also, don't break the root. If it breaks, it loses its medicinal effects. In that case, Huan Heir, when we find it, we will notify you, and then we will retrieve it. Xueqi responded to Jiang Peihuan's words. This was a safer way. Hearing this, Jiang Peihuan nodded in agreement. After discussing, they all went separate ways, but Xiao Nani stayed with Jiang Peihuan. He said, I'm worried about you. I'll go with you. All right. Jian Peihuan nodded and replied softly. While they were together, Jiang Peihuan searched, and he kept watch the surroundings. When Jiang Peihuan suddenly stopped and stared at a tree, Xiao Nani asked, What's wrong? I found it. Following Jiang Peihuan's direction, Xiao Nani saw a small plant not far away. The plant was growing at the bottom of a tree, but also on a cliff. Stay here, I'll get it. No. Jiang Peihuan grabbed Xiao Nani's hand. Look at the tree. Xiao Nani looked up and saw honeycombs with bees. Seeing the bees, Xiao Nani thought for a moment and then shouted, Everyone come over. We found it. Upon hearing Xiao Nani's voice, Xueqi and the others ran over. Xiao Nani then pointed to the bees in the tree. To get the 100 grass root, we will definitely disturb the bees. Who will go? He certainly wouldn't let Jiang Peihuan go. Of course he wouldn't go either. Eldest miss, let me do it. Chapter 135. Xueqi get the medicine. Yi Xiao looked at the bees and started to say something. But before she could finish, Jiang Peihuan said, "No, these bees could be poisonous. If anyone gets stung on the face, they could get scars." When Jiang Peihuan said this, Xiao Nani looked at Xueqi and Deputy General Liu. He asked, "Who will go?" Jiang Peihuan didn't say anything. She was not scared, but she was a girl and didn't like insects like bees. Looking at the dark swarm of bees, Xueqi wished he had brought more people from his house. Thinking for a moment, Xueqi tentatively looked at Deputy General Liu. "Shall I go?" "Okay, be careful, young Master Xue." Deputy General Liu agreed as soon as Xueqi spoke. Seeing him back off instantly, Xueqi was surprised. Since Xueqi was her cousin, after thinking for a while, Jiang Peihuan took a handkerchief from her sleeve and handed it to him. "Cousin Qi, cover your face with this." When Xueqi took the handkerchief, Xiao Nani and Jiang Peihuan moved back quickly. Seeing this, Xueqi was speechless. "Cousin Qi." Just as Xueqi was about to go forward, Jiang Peihuan called out to him. Xueqi smiled. He was happy that his cousin cared about him. Jiang Peihuan advised, "Be careful when you pull out the plant. Pull out the whole thing. And use your sleeve, not your hand." "Okay." Xueqi's smile disappeared quickly. He covered his face with the handkerchief and moved forward. Xueqi stepped on a branch and went ahead. The whole tree shook when he stepped on it. He held his breath when he saw the shaking beehive. Carefully walking to the 100-grass root, Xueqi bent over, covered the small grass with his sleeve, and pulled hard. The whole plant was pulled out. Seeing that all the roots were still intact, Jiang Peihuan was overjoyed and quickly shouted, "Cousin Qi, come back quickly." Hearing her, Xueqi turned around quickly, but as he started to move, he heard a buzzing sound. "Cousin Qi, run." Seeing the beehive fall, Jiang Peihuan quickly shouted. Xueqi ran, but he couldn't run faster than the bees. He felt a lot of pain as the bees stung him. All he could do was cover his face with his sleeve. When he saw the bees fly out, Xiao Nani quickly covered Jiang Peihuan's face with his sleeve. He then pulled her close to him. They walked a good distance before they no longer saw the bees. Jiang Peihuan turned to look at Xueqi and asked softly, "Cousin Qi, are you okay?" Hearing Jiang Peihuan's words, Xueqi put down his sleeve. Seeing his face, Jiang Peihuan couldn't help but laugh. Xueqi's forehead had been stung several times, even though he had covered his face. Jiang Peihuan was smiling, and Xueqi was upset. He said, "I got stung badly and you're still laughing. Well, ask Yi Xiao to get you some medicine when we get back. Apply it, and you'll be fine in a couple of days." Jiang Peihuan stopped laughing and spoke softly in response to Xueqi's words. Xueqi, despite being upset, was happy they found the special herb they were looking for. He used a handkerchief to protect the 100-grass root in his hand, then looked at Jiang Peihuan and asked, "Is this good?" "Yes, it's fine. Let's go back," she said, nodding as she saw the root was intact. They took the main road on their way back. However, when they reached the foot of the mountain, Jiang Peihuan noticed that the bumps on Xueqi's forehead had grown significantly larger. His face had also turned slightly pale. Jiang Peihuan quickly called out, "Yi Xiao, please check on my cousin Qi." Upon hearing her, Yi Xiao quickly took Xueqi's wrist, and after a careful examination, she turned to Jiang Peihuan. "Miss, these bees are poisonous. Young Master Qi was stung several times, and there's some toxin accumulation in his body. Give him this medicine." As Jiang Peihuan was thinking about finding some herbal medicine for Xueqi, Xiao Nani handed her a porcelain bottle. As soon as Jiang Peihuan received the porcelain bottle, she recognized the scent of the coagulation pill, which could neutralize any poison. However, this medicine was extremely rare. Xueqi, being a knowledgeable man, recognized the value of the pill in Jiang Peihuan's hand. He quickly objected. "No need, one was just stung by a few bees. Applying medicine later when we get home is fine. This medicine is too expensive, better if. These bees are wild and highly venomous. If we delay further, we don't know what harm it might cause your body. Eat this coagulation pill first." While speaking, Jiang Peihuan had already put the pill into Xueqi's mouth. With the pill already in his mouth, he had no choice but to swallow it. Soon after swallowing it, Xueqi felt much better. He walked up to Xiao Nani and respectfully thanked him. Thank you, Your Highness. Xiao Nani didn't look at Xueqi, but told Jiang Peihuan. Let's go back before it gets too hot. Okay, she agreed. They all rode their horses back to the Shui house. Just as Jiang Peihuan reached the courtyard gate, she saw the anxious Nanny Yun Gui. Seeing Jiang Peihuan, she immediately said, Young little miss, you're finally back. The old madam has been asking about you. Don't worry, Nanny Yin. One just went to find some medicine for my grandmother. You go back to her first. I'll change my clothes and then go see her. Take your time, young little Mississippi. Have some rest. After Yun Gui left, Jiang Peihuan returned to her room and changed her clothes. Go tell His Highness that I'll see him later. Thinking of Xiao Nani, Jian Peihuan quietly instructed Deputy General Liu. Seeing him nod, Jiang Peihuan then left with Yi Xiao to the old madam's courtyard. Huan heir, why were you in such a rush? You left very early in the morning to get medicine for me. Old Madame Shui held Jiang Peihuan's hand, her eyes full of concern. Seeing the look in her grandmother's eyes, Jiang Peihuan gently held her hand. Grandma, it's okay. Grandma, stop worrying about Huan heir. You should care about your grandson instead. At this point, Xueqi also entered after changing his clothes. As soon as he entered, the old madam saw the bumps on his head. Although she felt sorry for him, seeing Xueqi's state, she couldn't help but laugh. What happened to you? Seeing the smile on the old madam's face, Xueqi looked sad. Grandma, I was stung while picking medicine for you, and you're still laughing at me. Did you see a doctor after being stung like this? Grandma, don't worry. I've already applied medicine, and he'll be fine in a couple of days. Seeing the concern in his grandmother's eyes, Xueqi quickly assured her. Chapter 136. It must be someone close. Seeing that old Madame Shui was still worried, Xueqi said, Grandma, it's better for me to be stung than for Huan heir. After all, I'm a man. If Huan heir's face got hurt, wouldn't it be a pity? That makes sense, she said. Old Madame Shui, who was worried at first, laughed when she heard this, making everyone laugh. Xueji, who was standing nearby, told Jiang Peihuan, Huan heir, Achi told me that you guys have found a special root that might cure Grandma. Yes. When Xueji said this, Jiang Peihuan answered softly, but looking at everyone she said, Before we cure her, we need to do one thing. We need to find out why she got poisoned. If we don't, she could get poisoned again, even after we cure her. How do we find them? As soon as Jiang Peihuan finished speaking, Xueqi asked. Jiang Peihuan didn't look at the young men from Shui's family, but at Nanny Yin Gui. Yin Gui said to her, Young little miss, tell me what you need. Nanny Yin Gui, you know my grandmother the best, especially what she eats. From now on, Yi Xiao and I will check everything she uses every day. I understand. Young little Mississippi one will arrange it. Nanny Yin Gui bowed to old Madame Shui and left. Soon, she came back with Jiang Peihuan, and they went into old Madame Shui's room. The Shui brothers followed them, even though they didn't have the knowledge for medicine. Jiang Peihuan didn't stop them, because she was busy checking the items. She thought the poison came from something old Madame Shui used every day, because the poison from rosemary needs time to work. But she didn't find anything after checking everything. She looked at Yi Xiao, who shook her head when she saw Jiang Peihuan's questioning look. Seeing this, Jiang Peihuan frowned. Suddenly, Jiang Peihuan's gaze fell on old Madame Shui's bed. When she moved closer, Nanny Yin Gui quickly followed her. At first, Jiang Peihuan thought she smelled something wrong when she stood in the middle of the room. But as she got closer to the bed, the smell got stronger. In her previous life, when Jiang Peihuan was studying medicine, she had specially trained her sense of smell to prevent Xiao Juanhao from being poisoned. As long as there was a strange smell, she would be able to smell it. Yi Xiao, come and smell this. Yi Xiao came over when she heard Jiang Peihuan. After smelling the air, she said, It seems like it's coming from old Madame Shui's pillow. Yes, I smell it too. Old Madam, I'm sorry. Yi Xiao bowed to old Madame Shui and reached out to take the pillow from the bed. Nanny Yin Gui was surprised by this. She looked at old Madame Shui and saw her face turn pale right away. She stepped forward to support the old madam. Nanny Yun Gui looked at Jiang Peihuan and said, "Young little miss, isn't this pillow filled with medicinal herbs that help with sleep?" Hearing Nanny Yun Gui's words, Jiang Peihuan replied softly, "Yes, indeed it is filled with medicinal herbs that help with sleep. But other than medicinal herbs, there is also rosemary. Its scent is hidden, because there are so many different herbs." Nanny Yun Gui, where did this pillow come from? Huan Er. As Jiang Peihuan was about to ask Nanny Yun Gui, she heard old Madame Shue's voice and turned to look at her. Seeing that the old madam had reached out her hand to her, Jiang Peihuan quickly went forward to hold her hand. Old Madame Shui held her hand tightly. After a moment of silence, she said in a low voice, "Let's end this matter here." Hearing this, Jiang Peihuan was surprised. Just as she was about to speak, Xueqi angrily said, "Grandma, this person clearly wants to harm you. How can we let him off so easily? I said that this matter ends here. Can't you hear me? Or are you saying you don't listen to me anymore?" Before Xueqi could finish, old Madame Shui cut him off. Xueqi wanted to say more, but Jiang Peihuan quickly said, "Cousin Qi, Grandma's health is most important now. Let's talk about this later when Grandma is better." Hearing this, Xueqi, although confused, said nothing more. "Enough, I'm tired. Huan Er, stay with me. Everyone else leave." As soon as Grandma Shui spoke, everyone else left, leaving only her and Jiang Peihuan in the room. Even Nanny Yin Gui left. Jiang Peihuan helped the old madam to sit down and poured her a cup of tea. After handing the teacup in her hand to the old madam, Jiang Peihuan said softly, "Grandma, I specially asked Nanny Yun Gui to put some wild ginseng in here. Please drink some." Hearing Jiang Peihuan's words, the old madam reached out and took the teacup. After taking 2 sips, the old madam put down the teacup in her hand. Looking at Jiang Peihuan, who was sitting beside her, she said softly, "I thought you would ask me about this pillow. Grandma, if you don't want to talk about it, it means that this matter involves quite a few people, and it must be someone close to you. Therefore, if you don't want to talk about it, one won't ask." "Huan Er, you're young but very wise." Hearing old Madame Shue's words, Jiang Peihuan just smiled and didn't say anything. She was wise because she had lived twice. "The pillow was brought by your second aunt." "Second aunt?" Old Madame Shui said softly after a moment of silence, and Jiang Peihuan was shocked to hear this. If the pillow was from Wang Fengyi, Jiang Peihuan might believe it. But if it was Su Yunyang who poisoned old Madame Shui, Jiang Peihuan wouldn't believe it at all. Now Jian Peihuan finally understood why the old madam was unwilling to pursue this matter. After some thought, Jiang Peihuan looked directly at old Madame Shui and said, "Grandma, although one haven't had much contact with my second aunt, from what I can tell, she is a kind-hearted person and would never do such harm. I trust your second aunt's character, but am afraid she's been used by others." Hearing this, Jiang Peihuan didn't know what to say. In such a large mansion, every household has secrets. Jiang Peihuan thought this matter was over, but there was more to come. "Didn't you find the antidote? Why do you look sad?" After leaving old Madame Shue's courtyard, Jiang Peihuan went to the bamboo garden. Chapter 137. The poison is on the pillow. As soon as she sat down, she heard Xiao Nanya's voice. Jiang Peihuan didn't want to say anything, but when she heard the man's voice, she subconsciously said it. As Jiang Peihuan spoke, Xiao Nani remained silent, just quietly listening. After she finished, he spoke softly. "Old Madame Shui is just trying to protect the second madam, so it's understandable." "I understand, but I feel just uneasy." Seeing Jiang Peihuan go quiet, Xiao Nani gently held her hand and spoke softly. Hearing this, Jiang Peihuan nodded. She could understand old Madame Shue's thoughts, but she hated the real mastermind behind the scenes. Grandmother is not willing to pursue this matter. After all, this is the Shui family, so I can't say anything, but the mastermind behind the scenes is the one who benefits. Maybe not necessarily. As he spoke, Xiao Nani played with Jiang Peihuan's fingers. This was his first time looking at a woman's hand closely. Jiang Peihuan's fingers were long and thin, but in his hand, they were very small. He gently played with her fingers, smiling as if he had found a precious treasure. Jiang Peihuan didn't notice his actions. When she heard his words, she asked, "Xiao Nani, what do you mean? Do your cousins know the poison is in the pillow?" "Yes." Seeing her nod, Xiao Nani asked, "Then, will your second aunt hear about this?" When she heard this, Jiang Peihuan understood. She had forgotten this detail. Jiang Peihuan was about to speak when she heard fast footsteps. She turned her head and saw Nanny Yun Gui coming towards them. The old servant greets His Highness King Chung and young little Mississippi. Yun Gui's eyes were full of urgency, but when she saw Xiao Nani and Jiang Peihuan, she still stepped forward and seriously paid her respects. Xiao Nani didn't say anything, and Jiang Peihuan hurriedly stepped forward to help her up, speaking softly. "Nanny Yun Gui, why are you here? Is my grandma okay?" "Not old Madam Shui, it's the second madam." "Second aunt." Jiang Peihuan looked at Xiao Nani. She thought he was just a battlefield strategist, but he saw everything clearly at the mansion. Nanny Yun Gui wanted to speak, but looked at Xiao Nani. Seeing this, Jiang Peihuan turned her head to look at the man. "I'll go there for a while." Seeing Xiao Nani nod, Jiang Peihuan then looked at Yun Gui and said, "Let's go over there." Yun Gui hurriedly followed Jiang Peihuan's pace, and halfway there, Jiang Peihuan finally understood what was going on. After Xueqi returned to his room, he told everything. As soon as Su Yunyang heard that the pillow was poisoned, she immediately went to old Madame Shui's courtyard. Not only Su Yunyang, but Wang Fingyi also went. Leveraging the accusation that Su Yunyang plotted against her mother-in-law, Wang Fingyi continuously hurled insults at Su Yunyang. Jiang Peihuan walked into the old madam's courtyard just in time to hear Wang Fingyi's insults. "Su Yunyang, my mother has always treated you well. How could you be so cruel? Sister-in-law, Yunyang would never do such a thing. Please be careful with your words." Shuai also knelt beside Su Yunyang. When he heard Wang Fingyi's insults, he began to speak with a gloomy look in his eyes. But it would have been better if he didn't speak. Upon hearing his words, the mockery and contempt in Wang Fingyi's eyes deepened. "Second brother, the Su family is nothing but a fallen family. Su Yunyang keeps taking the Shui family's money to subsidize her mother's family. And you still want to protect her? Sister-in-law, stop talking nonsense. Yunyang and I are husband and wife, so my money is naturally her money. She took the money from the Su family with my consent." "If your money, the Shui family hasn't split up yet. Who gave you the right to say that money is?" "Everyone be quiet." Old Madame Shui, who was sitting in the main seat, spoke with a look of anger upon hearing their arguments. When she spoke, everyone kept quiet. At this moment, Su Yunyang looked at the old madam full of guilt. "Mother, it's all my fault that you are in such trouble." As she spoke, Su Yunyang's eyes were filled with guilt and tears. Seeing the look in her eyes, the old madam said softly, "Yunyang, this is not your fault. Don't blame yourself." Then she looked at Shui Hai, who was kneeling next to her. "What are you waiting for? Help your wife get up." "Mother, you're not being fair. It's clear that the pillow was a gift from my second sister-in-law. Now you've been poisoned, and you've decided it has nothing to do with her without even asking. I remember when I gave you a ginseng soup, and you blamed me without a second word when your stomach didn't feel right." Wang Fingyi didn't look happy as she watched Shui Hai help Su Yunyang stand up. When the old madam heard this, her face changed. She looked at Wang Fingyi and said coldly, "So you think this matter should be pursued to the end?" For some reason, Wang Fingyi looked nervous when she looked at the old madam, but thinking about her plans, she nodded. "Of course. All right, since you want to pursue this matter, one will fulfill your wish. Huan come here." Old Madame Shui had noticed Jiang Peihuan come in earlier. Jiang Peihuan was standing at the door. When she heard the old madam, she walked over and bowed to her. "Grandmother. Huan your maid is skilled in medicine. Can she identify the herbs in my pillow?" "Yes, she can. Since you want to investigate, then investigate everything. Yunyang, tell us where you got the herbs for the pillow, what herbs they were, and who else touched them." "Yes, mother." While Su Yunyang had someone find the list of herbs, Yi Xiao had already identified all the herbs in the pillow. After comparison, There was no difference between the herbs in the pillow and those on the list. Even with such a result, the old madam was not surprised at all. Wang Fingyi also smiled proudly when she saw this scene. Mother, it seems that rosemary was put in by second sister-in-law herself. Aunt, how do you know that grandmother was poisoned by rosemary? At this moment, Jiang Peihuan suddenly spoke up. Upon hearing Jiang Peihuan's words, Wang Fingyi was stunned. After a few seconds she said quietly, I heard them say. Who are they? Chapter 138. The mastermind. Jiang Peihuan spoke subconsciously, but Wang Fingyi's face changed. Huan what do you mean? Are you questioning me? Have you forgotten that I'm your elder? My apologies, Aunt Wang. I didn't mean anything by it. I was just asking. I remember now. When I brought the pillow to Mother's courtyard, sister-in-law came to see me, and even checked the pillow. What nonsense are you talking about? When did I ever check the pillow? Sister-in-law, the maids were there at that time. You said you wanted to make a pillow for Mother too, and wanted to see the style of the one I made. So at that time. Which maid? Before Su Yunyang finished, Wang Fingyi interrupted her. Both of those maids fell ill and died 3 months ago. Su Yunyang said quietly after a pause. When Wang Fingyi heard this, she looked very pleased. So, you two don't have any proof. Seeing this, Jiang Peihuan gave Yi Xiao a secret signal. Yi Xiao got the signal, and gently pulled Xueqi's sleeve. Although Xueqi didn't know what Yi Xiao wanted, he followed her out. Xueqi looked worried, he trusted his mom. But it was not his turn to talk. When he left with Yi Xiao he asked directly, What do you need from me? Young Master Xue, please take me to the first madam's courtyard. To Aunt Wang's courtyard? Xueqi was confused, given the situation. Yi Xiao didn't have time to explain and simply said, Miss Jiang asked me to. When hearing this, Xueqi just nodded, Follow me. Everyone inside was watching Wang Fingyi and Su Yunyang. No one saw Xueqi and Yi Xiao leave. Wang Fingyi was pressing hard on Su Yunyang, who looked very depressed and upset. When she didn't say anything, Wang Fingyi asked, Do you have anything else to say? While speaking, she glanced at Jiang Peihuan. But Jiang Peihuan ignored Wang Fingyi, as she saw Yi Xiao and Xueqi coming back. Seeing Jiang Peihuan, Yi Xiao nodded. Seeing this, Jiang Peihuan said, Grandma, I have proof that Aunt Wang is involved in this matter. When they heard Jiang Peihuan, everyone looked at her. But Wang Fingyi was angry. Jiang Peihuan, you. At this moment, Jiang Peihuan suddenly took a wooden box from Yi Xiao's hands. Upon seeing the box, Wang Fingyi was immediately stunned, her eyes filled with panic. Huan what proof do you have? Xue Hai quickly asked. Although the old Madame Xue didn't speak, she looked at Jiang Peihuan eagerly. Facing everyone, Jiang Peihuan softly said, Cousin Qi found this in Aunt Wang's room. It contains rosemary. Xueqi, how dare you search my room without my consent? Do you have no respect for your elders? Hearing Jiang Peihuan's words, Wang Fingyi's eyes were filled with resentment as she glared at Xueqi. Xueqi was shocked for a few seconds. Then he said loudly, Aunt Wang, it was wrong to go into your room. But my mom never lies. If she says you touched the pillow, then you did. You. Hearing this, Wang Fingyi was so angry she couldn't speak. She looked at Xuezhi and Xuezhan who were silent. She yelled at them. Are you two dead? Don't you see your mom being bullied? Xuezhi and Xuezhan had complicated expressions in their eyes. Seeing their faces, Xueqi felt bad. But now he knew why Yi Xiao brought him along. If people knew it was Jiang Peihuan who searched Wang Fingyi's room, Jiang Peihuan would not be welcome in the Xue family. Seeing her sons remain silent, Wang Fingyi looked at Jiang Peihuan and said, What can a single box prove? Aunt Wang, do you know that rosemary is produced in the western regions and is very rare in Qingzhou? All the rosemary in Qingzhou is less than what's in this box. Can you say this has nothing to do with you? Wang Fingyi, are you still not going to tell the truth? Then a loud angry voice came from the door. It was Xue Tao. He just came back from the army, still wearing his armor. He walked to Wang Fingyi, looking very angry. How dare you poison my mom, you evil woman? Wang Fingyi wanted to deny it. But hearing Xue Tao, she said, Yes, one put the rosemary in the pillow. So what? Everyone was shocked to see Wang Fengji's calm face. Jiang Peihuan frowned. She had always disliked Wang Fengyi, but she just thought Wang Fengyi was spoiled by the Wang family. She never thought she was not only spoiled but also evil. Sister-in-law, she's your mother-in-law and your husband's mom. She's always been nice, how could you? Su Yunyang, shut up. You're the last person who has the right to say that. Wang Fengyi suddenly yelled furiously. Su Yunyang was shocked. Walking to her, Wang Fengyi said angrily, your family is poor. We're not equal. And her? Then, Wang Fengyi pointed at old Madame Xue. I've been married into the Xue family for so many years, but you've always held the family authority. And my son had to grow up by your side. You treat me like this, but you give the family authority to Su Yunyang, and let her child stay by her side. Why? Why do you treat me like this? At the end, Wang Fengji's eyes were full of hate. Old Mrs. Xue was quiet all along. Hearing this, she looked at Wang Fengyi. So you decided to poison me to death? Even though the room was in chaos, the old Madame Xue remained calm. Looking at her, Wang Fengyi felt scared. She looked at the old madam and subconsciously said, one didn't want to poison you to death. I just want to make you sick. Aunt Wang, do you know that if I hadn't come, grandmother would have died from the poison in 6 months? How is this possible? Jiang Peihuan, don't talk nonsense. Huan Er isn't lying. One asked the doctor. Everything she said is true. This was said by Xue Ji. Looking at her eldest son who suddenly spoke, Wang Fengyi looked scared. All Ji you? Chapter 139. Wang Fengyi was punished at this moment. Xue Ji's eyes were full of shame. Seeing his expression, Wang Fengyi was stunned. Xue Ji did not look at her, but instead knelt in front of the old madam. Grandmother, one dares not plead for my mother, but I am willing to take her punishment. Grandmother and me. Then Xue Zhan also knelt next to his older brother. Seeing her 2 sons kneeling on the ground, Wang Fengyi was directly stunned. After a few seconds, she finally said with anger, what are you doing? Clearly, I'm the one being treated unfairly. Why should I be punished? Wang Fengyi, shut up. As soon as Wang Fengji's words fell, Xue Tao, who was on the side, yelled at her with gloomy eyes. For so many years, this was the first time Xue Tao had yelled at Wang Fengyi. Although Xue Tao was rough, he was very kind to his family. So even though Wang Fengyi was bossy, Xue Tao had never yelled at her. But today, knowing that she had poisoned his mother, Xue Tao could not accept it. However, it seemed that Wang Fengyi still did not understand the situation. Hearing Xue Tao's yell, her face turned uglier and stared at Xue Tao coldly. Xue Tao, you dare yell at me, you? I will not only yell at you but also divorce you. Xue Tao interrupted her before she finished. Upon hearing this, Wang Fengyi was stunned. After a few seconds of silence, her eyes showed a trace of panic. But looking at Xue Tom, she said angrily, you want to divorce me? On what grounds can you divorce me? Because you poisoned your mother-in-law. You. Hearing this, Wang Fengyi wanted to retort subconsciously, but couldn't find any words to rebut. And Xue Ji and Xue Zhan, who were kneeling on the ground, heard these words and quickly kowtowed to Xue Tao. Father, please calm down. Even though they knew their mother's faults, she was still their mother. They had to do something. Seeing his 2 sons, Xue Tao also couldn't say anything harsh. He could only kneel beside his 2 sons and say to the old Madame Xue, Mother, I've failed you. Old Madame Xue had been silent all along. It was only then that she looked at Wang Fengyi and said, you said I favored Yunyang and was unfair to you. So let me ask you a few questions. Since you married into the Xue family, has anyone treated you badly? Nobody did anything to me, but you only need to answer my question. Before Wang Fengyi could finish her sentence, the old madam interrupted her. Facing the old madam, Wang Fengyi shook her head. No. Whether it is towards me, your mother-in-law, or your husband, you always have a fault-finding attitude. Have we ever argued with you? Of course not. Although old Madame Xue didn't treat her as well as Su Yunyang, she had never made things difficult for her. As for Xue Tao, he had the principle of not arguing with women. No. Wang Fengyi, you think your Wang family is superior, and feel wronged marrying into the Shui family. But have you ever thought why, among many daughters in the Wang family, your parents chose you to marry into the Shui family? Isn't it because you were not the favored child in the Wang family? Your mother had 3 daughters. Your elder sister is the apple of your parents' eyes. Your younger sister is the child of their old age. Only you were not cherished by your parents. When your mother was pregnant with you, she was happy, thinking you were a boy. But when you turned out to be a girl, your parents were disappointed. Originally, I didn't want to say these things. But since today's incident has escalated to this, one might as well tell you directly, it was not the Shui family who proposed marriage, but your mother who took the initiative to find me. Because if any prestigious family wanted to marry a daughter of the Wang family, they would first consider your elder sister, then your younger sister, but never you. Now, do you still feel wronged? Although old Madame Shui's voice wasn't loud, each word was like a knife, hurting Wang Fengius deeply. Her face went pale instantly. She looked at old Madame Shui, wanted to say something but couldn't. At this moment, old Madame Shui continued, "If you don't want to stay in the Shui family, you can divorce Shui Tao." "No, I will never divorce." Hearing the word divorce, Wang Fengius' eyes were filled with panic, as if she had realized something. She quickly knelt down, looking at old Madame Shui. She said in fear, "Mother, please spare me this time. Don't make me divorce my husband, even if it's for the sake of all Ji and all Zhan." When Wang Fengyi mentioned Shui Ji and Shui Zhan, old Madame Shui's eyes softened a little. After a moment of silence, she looked at Wang Fengyi and said, "For the sake of your 2 sons, let's forget about today's incident, but I want you to stay in the family temple for 3 months. Mother." When Wang Fengyi heard the first part of old Madame Shui's sentence, she let out a sigh of relief. But when she heard the last part, she immediately frowned. Old Madame Shui continued, "In 3 months, if you haven't changed, you'll stay there longer. Oh yes, I see that Shui Ru, that girl, has also become a bit too arrogant due to your upbringing. Let her go with you. At least she can take care of you." No one commented on old Madame Shui's decision, but Jiang Peihuan thought it was because Shui Ru went to see Xiao Nani the night before. "Alright, you all can go. Huan Er, stay with me." Everyone looked worried, but seeing old Madame Shui was tired, they didn't say anything. Everyone in the Shui family slowly left old Madame Shui's courtyard. Only Jiang Peihuan walked to old Madame Shui's side, sat down on the couch at her feet, reached out and held old Madame Shui's hand. "Grandma, I'm not bothered about my cousin's issues." "Because you aren't one have to do this. Although King Qing pardoned Shui Ru for your sake, the Shui family can't slow you down." As she spoke, old Madame Shui gently patted Jiang Peihuan's head. Feeling the warmth of old Madame Shui's palm, Jiang Peihuan gently leaned her head against old Madame Shui's leg. "Thank you, Grandma." After a moment of silence, Jiang Peihuan continued, "Grandmother, you must already know who poisoned you." Jiang Peihuan didn't look at old Madame Shui's reaction as she leaned on her. Chapter 140. Lin Minjio's plan. Upon hearing Jiang Peihuan's words, old Madame Shui revealed a hint of helplessness and anger in her eyes. "It was because I knew that your aunt was not the real murderer that I let her off lightly. However, Huaner, how did you know? The rosemary is only available in the western regions. Where did your aunt get the rosemary from? It's clear if you think about it." "Huaner, you're really smart." Upon hearing Jiang Peihuan's words, old Madame Shui looked somewhat surprised and then smiled. However, there was a hint of coldness in Jiang Peihuan's eyes when she heard this. "Grandma, if I'm not mistaken, the Wang family must be the ones who planned all this behind the scenes. Do we let it end like this? Having learned from this experience, I believe your aunt will not be easily manipulated by others. As for me, 1 foot is already in the grave, so let's turn a blind eye. If it comes to being shrewd, no one can surpass old Madame Shui." Yet, Jiang Peihuan knew that Madame Shui's reluctance to pursue further was only for the sake of family harmony. Jiang Peihuan didn't say anything else. Instead, she held old Madame Shui's hand tightly. "With Huan Er around, it'll make sure you live a long life, Grandma." Alert! Upon hearing this, old Madame Shui seemed less worried and smiled. That night, Jian Peihuan did not return to her own courtyard. Instead, she stayed with old Madame Shui. While Shui's mansion was in total chaos, Jingdo was not peaceful either. In Qing Mansion. How is it? Xiao Juanhao asked Pei coldly as he walked in. Pei Wu looked upset. He bowed to Xiao and then said quietly, Your Highness, eldest Miss Jiang has gone to Qingzhou safely. She's safe. Upon hearing Pei Wu's words, Xiao Juanhao didn't know whether to feel disappointed or relieved. Only he knew that he had heaved a sigh of relief for a moment. Pei Wu nodded and continued. Currently, eldest Miss Jiang has already arrived at the Shui mansion, so we can't do anything. Did Lin Xingchen fail? Where is he now? Hearing this, Pei Wu's expression turned even uglier. Xiao Juanhao had a bad feeling upon seeing Pei Wu's face, and asked with a cold gaze, What happened? Your Highness, Lin Xingchen has joined the army under King Cheng. What did you say? Xiao Junhao's eyes were filled with gloom. He knew about Lin Xingchen's identity long ago, and wanted him to attack Jiang Peihuan, to gain leverage over Lin Xingchen, so he could use him for his own purposes. Xiao Juanhao was aware of Lin Xingchen's abilities. But now, everything had been ruined by Xiao Nani. Your Highness. At this time, a gentle voice came from the entrance of the living room. It was Lin Mingyao. Seeing her appear, Pei Wu couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. Although Xiao Junhao's expression was still very ugly, his face somewhat softened. With the help of Lin Ruohai and Lin Mingyao recently, Xiao Juanhao had finally collected enough money to refurbish the palace. Emperor Qi Ming also had a slight change in attitude towards him because of this. So when Xiao Juanhao saw Lin Mingyao, he said gently, Why are you here all of a sudden? I was just passing by the mansion, so one came to see your highness. This was clearly an excuse, but no one was going to expose it. Seeing that Xiao Juanhao remained silent, Lin Mingyao took a seat next to him, then spoke softly. Your Highness, I've learned about what you and Guard Pei have been discussing. I have a plan that might help. What ideas do you have, Yao Heir? Feel free to share them. After spending some time together, Xiao Juanhao had come to understand Lin Mingyao's personality. Although she was gentle, she had her own thoughts. Upon hearing Xiao Junhao's words, Lin Mingyao said softly, Eldest Miss Jiang is a skilled martial artist, and has the protection of the dark guards that King Cheng left her, making it hard to harm her. However, you could target other people from the Jiang family. Lin Mingyao's voice was very soft, but clearly heard by Xiao Juanhao and Pei Wu. Upon hearing this, Xiao Junhao's eyes lit up. Grasping Lin Mingyao's hand, a smile appeared in Xiao Junhao's eyes. Yao Heir, you really are extremely clever. Your Highness must be joking. I just wanted to help your Highness resolve your worries. Lin Mingyao left the prince's mansion after a short while. After she left, the smile on Xiao Junhao's face instantly disappeared. He looked at Pei Wu and said coldly, Tell Jian Mei to keep an eye on everyone in the Jiang family. Once there's any news, inform me immediately. Yes. Jiang Peihuan was unaware of what had happened in Jingdo. Perhaps she was tired from the journey, or because she didn't sleep well the previous night. But Jiang Peihuan slept soundly that night in the old madam's courtyard. By the time she woke up, it was already bright outside. Without disturbing anyone, Jiang Peihuan tidied up a bit and left the room. Just as she reached the main hall, she heard a familiar voice. Xiao Nani was chatting with the old madam. As soon as Jiang Peihuan reached the door, he heard her. He subconsciously turned to look at the door. As Xiao Nani looked at Jiang Peihuan, she looked back at him. As their eyes met, both of them showed a faint smile. At first, the old madam had been slightly worried when she learned of Jiang Peihuan and Xiao Nani's engagement. But now, seeing the way they interacted, she felt reassured. Waving towards Jiang Peihuan, the old madam softly said, Why are you up so early? I specifically told the maids not to disturb you. Stepping forward to pay her respects to the old madam, Jiang Peihuan then held her hand. I've slept more than usual. That's good. King Cheng just arrived. I've already told Yin Gui to prepare breakfast. Let's have breakfast here with King Cheng in a while. All right. Old madam, breakfast is ready. Actually, breakfast had been ready for a while, and Yin Gui was just waiting for the old madam's orders. Seeing that Jiang Peihuan was up, she came forward to say. Then, the three of them went to the dining room. Several small dishes were ready on the table. There weren't many, just 5 or 6 dishes. After sitting down, the old madam looked at Xiao Nani and said, I hope your highness will forgive us. The food in our mansion is always simple. I'm sorry if it's not enough. There's no need for that, old madam. When one was campaigning outside, one ate and lived with my soldiers, so I'm not picky about food. Although Xiao Nani didn't speak much, he was very approachable when talking to old Madame Shui. Chapter 141. Sending Shuiru away after having breakfast, the old madam asked Jiang Peihuan to return to her courtyard. Of course, Xiao Nani also left with her. The smile in the old madam's eyes deepened as she watched the two of them leave. At first, one was worried that Huan Er might face hardships in the future, but now I'm not worried anymore. Young little miss is blessed. One think His Highness is very gentle and considerate to young little Mississippi. Nanny Yin Gui chuckled softly when she heard the old madam's words. Jiang Peihuan was unaware of the discussion behind her. After leaving the old madam's courtyard, she looked at the man beside her and asked, Why did you come to my grandmother's courtyard so early this morning? I was waiting for you in the courtyard last night. Later, I heard from Yi Xiao that you slept in the old madam's courtyard. One wanted to look for you, but I thought it would be inappropriate, so one waited until this morning. Being in Shui Mansion is not as convenient as when you were in Jiang Mansion. At first, Jiang Peihuan felt touched by his words, but after hearing the last sentence, she couldn't help but glare at the man beside her. So you're addicted to climbing walls. If the girls in the Jingdo knew about your highness' love for climbing walls, one don't know how many hearts would be broken. Whether they're sad or not doesn't matter to me. Only you matter to me, Huan Er. Although it was sweet talk, Xiao Nani's eyes were very serious when he said them. Seeing the seriousness in his eyes, Jiang Peihuan smiled. Just as she was about to speak, an unpleasant voice interrupted. I'm not going to the family temple. My mom made a mistake, not me. Why should I go? One won't go. Hearing this, Jiang Peihuan frowned. She subconsciously looked in front of her, and saw Shuiru standing at the corner with anger in her eyes, while Shuiji stood at the side with displeasure in his eyes. There were a few scratches on the back of Shuiji's hand, which were caused by Shuiru. Seeing this, Jiang Peihuan frowned again. This is grandmother's order. You have to go even if you don't want to. Moreover, mother has always treated you well. Why aren't you and third brother going? You're her real sons. Shuiru cut Shuiji off before he finished talking. Hearing this, anger flashed in Shuiji's eyes. He had naturally proposed to go too, but was scolded severely by Shui Tao. Just as Shuiji was about to speak, a gentle voice sounded in his ear. Cousin, are you unwilling to go to the family temple because you don't want to take care of eldest aunt? Jiang Peihuan didn't want to get involved, but she still approached seeing Shuiji's situation. When Shuiru heard Jiang Peihuan's voice, she got angrier. She wanted to yell at Jiang Peihuan, but she saw Xiao Nani. Even though Xiao Nani had hurt her recently, she still shyly greeted him when she saw his handsome face. Greetings, Your Highness King Cheng'ai. Have you forgotten what I said before? Xiao Nani cut off Shuiru and spoke with a gloomy expression. Seeing Shuiru's panicked face, Xiao Nani continued. I said one don't want to see you again. Did you not take my words seriously? In that case, I'll kill you now. As his words fell, Xiao Nani opened the fan in his hand. Seeing the blade at the end of the fan, Shuiru's eyes were filled with terror. Your Highness King Cheng, please forgive my little sister. Shuiji, who was standing aside, saw this scene and quickly stood in front of Shuiru. Even when facing Shuiji, Xiao Nani didn't appear interested in what he had to say. Upon hearing Shuiji's words, the man spoke with a deep voice. What? Has the Shui family treated my orders as if they were nothing? Your Highness, that's not the case. Grandmother ordered my younger sister to go to the family temple to take care of our mother, so that's why she came out of the room. Is that so? As he said this, Xiao Nani looked at Shuiru. Shuiru was stunned when she met Xiao Nani's gaze. Shuiji, who was standing beside her, quickly pulled her back. Shuiru nodded quickly. Yes, One came out because I needed to go to the family one temple to take care of my mother. Wang Fingyi had already sent Xue Tao away last night, and because it was late, the Xue family did not call for Xue Ru, which led to the events of today. Upon hearing this, Xiao Nani put away his folding fan. But when he turned to look at Xue Ru, his expression instantly turned cold. If that's the case, why haven't you left yet? I will take my little sister away now. Hearing Xiao Nanya's words, Xueji quickly held Xue Ru's hand and started leading her out of the mansion. Xue Ru wanted to struggle, but Xueji whispered to her, "If you don't follow me obediently to the temple, His Highness will kill you right here." Upon hearing this, Xue Ru didn't dare to struggle anymore. Jiang Peihuan watched Xue Ru leave and looked at the man beside her with amusement in her eyes. Seeing her look, the man said, "I'm helping your cousin here." Jiang Peihuan gave a faint smile but didn't say anything, even though the man had taken hold of her wrist. Jiang Peihuan was puzzled when she saw Xiao Nani head to the gate. "Xiao Nani, where are you taking me?" Everyone says that Qingzhou is different from Jingdou, so today we will take a good look around Qingzhou city. After saying that, Xiao Nani took Jiang Peihuan and left the Xue mansion. Deputy General Lu wanted to come too, but Xiao Nani stopped him. "One want to be alone with Huan Heir, so you don't need to come." Seeing that Deputy General Lu was still hesitating, Xiao Nani continued, "With me here, no one can hurt her." Upon hearing this, Deputy General Lu silently stepped back. As for Yi Xiao, she was preparing the antidote for old Madame Xue. When Jiang Peihuan came to Qingzhou that day, she was only thinking about Madame Xue, so she didn't pay attention to the surrounding on the street. Now taking a look outside, Jiang Peihuan noticed that the street was very bustling. Both sides of the street were filled with stalls. Although it couldn't compare to the capital, it was still very lively. "Do you want to take a look around?" Xiao Nani took Jiang Peihuan to the street and then asked softly. Looking at the lively crowd, Jian Peihuan nodded. Whether in her past life or this life, Jiang Peihuan rarely went shopping like this. Looking at the passing crowd, her heart seemed to liven up. "Young master, you want to choose a hairpin for your wife?" When Xiao Nani and Jiang Peihuan passed by a small stall, a clear voice sounded. Hearing the word wife, Xiao Nanya's lips curved into a smile. Looking at Jiang Peihuan, he whispered, "Wife, how about looking at some hairpins?" Jiang Peihuan also heard the stall owner's words. She had originally wanted to explain, but considering that they already had an engagement, she decided not to. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.